Chapter 978. So you can feel the memories of the zombie state. After Yin Hong woke up, Gahan, who was very curious about the zombie state, asked her in detail. Captivating Red did not hide anything and answered Guhan in full detail. As it turned out, Captivating Red was not in a comatose state. Instead, she had completely lost control of her body. She did not feel any pain and could only watch everything as a bystander. It was precisely because of this that Captivating Hong clearly knew that she was only able to pass this trial because of the power of the frozen body. It was the frozen body that endured the endless pressure again and again that gave Captivating Hong the opportunity to continuously recover her qi and blood. In the end, she passed the final step and the two of them completed the trial of the Yangguang Palace together. Brother Gahan's great kindness, Lu Qingmei will never forget it. Today, I, Qingmei, owe Brother Gahan a favor, and I will repay it with my life in the future. After Lu Qingmei's body recovered and she walked out of the medicine vat, she did not care that her clothes were wet and stuck to her body. Her clothes could clearly see Lu Qingmei's impressive curves. She actually knelt in front of Gahan and said solemnly, "Get up." Gahan smiled and did not help Lu Qingmei up. Instead, he said with a slight tease, "I know if I don't agree, you will definitely kneel for a long time, right? Therefore, I promise you that from now on, you will owe me a favor of your life. This matter will be settled like this." This is not the script I expected. Lu Qingmei stood up from the ground with a displeased expression. According to Lu Qingmei's original script, Gahan should keep declining, and she would keep making requests, using reasons like if he did not agree. She would kneel for a long time to make Gahan have no choice but to agree. However, she never expected that Gahan would directly agree. Instead, Lu Qingmei did not know how to continue acting. She could only helplessly stand up from the ground. It was as uncomfortable as having a fishbone stuck in her throat. It seems like my cardinal sword spirit has encountered quite a bit of trouble. On the other side, Gahan stood at the exit of the single-person tunnel. He realized that the single-person tunnel was still occupied. This meant that the cardinal sword spirit was still undergoing the test in the single-person tunnel. Instead, Gahan and Lu Qingmei, who had arrived late, had passed the test of the Yang Guanggong first. All right, we don't need to care about other people's business. Lu Qingmei tidied up her new clothes and stepped out of the Yangguang Palace. Outside the exit of the Yangguang Palace, the mountain peak that was originally covered by thick fog suddenly distorted. The fog that filled the sky gradually dissipated, and finally, a majestic palace appeared in front of Gahan and Lu Qingmei. On the signboard of this palace, the words Stone Monkey Palace were written in large letters. This was the 9th palace of the skyscraping 12 palaces, the Stone Monkey Palace. Stone Monkey Palace? What's so special about this name? Gahan asked in confusion when he saw the name of this palace. In Gahan's knowledge, Stone Monkey was a somewhat inexplicable word. In a modern Chinese dictionary, Stone Monkey did not exist as a unique noun. Could it be that according to its literal meaning, the stone monkey referred to a monkey that was carved from stone? Of course, the stone monkey refers to Sun Wukong. What's there to think about? Lu Qingmei stared at Gahan in confusion, as if it was very strange that Gahan did not even know such basic common sense. Sun Wukong? This is another unfamiliar name. Gahan muttered in his heart, but this time he did not say it out loud. Then he could not help but sigh. It seems like the stone monkey was something that everyone knew before the great cultural disruption. I didn't expect it to disappear so completely after the great cultural disruption. When Gahan and Lu Qingmei pushed open the door of the Stone Monkey Palace, they discovered that the entire palace was empty. There was only a huge stone placed in the middle of the palace. This stone looked ordinary, just like an ordinary boulder. However, there were 3 big words carved on the boulder: Heaven Mending Stone. Heaven Mending Stone. It really is the great sage, Heaven's equal. Upon seeing this stone, Lu Qingmei began to get excited, as if she had seen her life idol. This made Gahan extremely surprised. This stone monkey actually dared to call the great sage heaven's equal, by such a cool and domineering name. If the Jade Emperor of the Heavenly Court knew about this, wouldn't he eat this monkey alive? Other than the Jade Emperor of the Heavenly Court, there was no immortal in the entire Heavenly Court who dared to put the two words heaven's equal above their heads. This stone monkey was really arrogant. It was probably just a monkey wearing a crown and had an undeserved reputation. However, looking at Lu Qingmei's excited look, this stone monkey was not just famous before the great cultural destruction. It was so famous that it was engraved into the hearts of all humans. Otherwise, Lu Qingmei wouldn't be so excited right now. Gahan walked to the side of the heaven-mending stone and took a closer look. To his surprise, he discovered that the heaven-mending stone wasn't carved by someone else. There were no traces of it being carved by a knife or axe. These three words seemed to have naturally grown out from this stone. What are you doing? The great sage, heaven's equal, is inside. What if you let him out if you touch him? Seeing that Gahan was planning to touch the heaven-mending stone, Lu Qingmei immediately stopped him. What do you mean by this? Could it be that the great sage, heaven's equal, is imprisoned in this stone? Of course, if the great sage, heaven's equal, isn't in this stone, where is he? Lu Qingmei rolled her eyes at Gahan. Everyone in the world knows that the great sage, heaven's equal, was born from a stone. Why do I feel that you're the only one who doesn't know this? So he was born from a stone? No wonder you call him the stone monkey. Gahan's eyes lit up. He finally understood the origin of the stone monkey's name. However, since this place is called the Stone Monkey Palace, the test subject is naturally this monkey. No matter what, we have to let him out. Touching him is a must. After speaking, Gahan placed his hand on the stone. However, after this, the heaven-mending stone didn't have any reaction. It seems that the great sage, heaven's equal that you mentioned, is not in this stone. Gahan knocked on the heaven-mending stone again and said disdainfully, "Hee, my little fellow, of course I, old son, am not in this stone. It's very stuffy inside this stone. Ever since old son jumped out of this stone, he never planned to go back." Suddenly, a sharp voice came from the palace. The voice made Gahan's ears uncomfortable. However, it wasn't the same for Lu Qingmei's ears. Her expression was one of joy and excitement. It was as if she had heard a familiar voice. This voice was indeed familiar because 3 or 4 generations of people had grown up in this voice. It was such a familiar voice of the Monkey King. Great sage, where are you?" Lu Qingmei said excitedly to the empty stone monkey palace. She wanted to find traces of this monkey. Unfortunately, whether it was Lu Qingmei or Gahan, who had already used his eyesight to the extreme, they couldn't find any traces in this space. It was as if this voice came out of nowhere. Could it be that this is a universe level or eternity level Yuan Ko that can hide in the void and talk to us? Gahan immediately reacted. This great sage, heaven's equal, must be in the void. That was why he could completely conceal his figure, making it impossible for Gahan to find traces of him. This meant that this great sage, heaven's equal, was at least a universe-level Yuan Ko. He was an existence that Gahan absolutely couldn't defeat. With the identity of a universe-level Yuan Ko, he was barely worthy of the title of heaven's equal. Of course, Gahan didn't have much fear. This was because since this great sage, heaven's equal, was in the Stone Monkey Palace, he was definitely under Kenzu's control. This meant that he couldn't harm Luo Yunyang and Lu Qingmei's lives. He was just a test subject. Great sage, Junior Gahan has long heard of your great name. It's an honor to meet you today. This was the first time Gahan heard of the great sage, heaven's equal's name. How could he have heard of him? However, flattery was useless. Since the other party was at least a universe-level Yuan Ko, Gahan couldn't be too forceful. It seemed like it was a good choice to make the other party happy first. Who in this world hasn't heard of me? Great sage, heaven's equal. I, old son, don't like a fan like you. Although he sounded disdainful, great sage, heaven's equal's tone was obviously much happier. I, old son, ask you, how long has the 12 skyscraping palaces been around? In reply to the great sage, Today is the 9th year and 6th month since the appearance of the 12 skyscraping palaces. Lu Qingmei hurriedly replied. Her attitude was extremely respectful. It wasn't the attitude a sword-bearer should have towards Yuan Ko. Oh, in that case, I, old son, have been asleep for 9 years. However, you little kids aren't very capable. You spent 9 years before coming here. It seems like fleeting calendar. That kid hasn't found a satisfactory disciple? Great sage, heavens equal chuckled. We're useless. We've made a fool of ourselves in front of you. Gahan continued. However, we still made it here. Great sage, you must be the test subject of this stone monkey palace. I hope Great Sage can tell us how we can pass the test of this stone monkey palace. Of course, of course. Simple, simple. Great Sage, heavens equal laughed even louder. You two little kids just need to defeat me. Old son, and I, old son, will let you pass. How is it? Isn't it very simple? Great Sage, you're not joking, right? When Lu Qingmei heard this, her whole body went limp, and she couldn't use any strength. Great Sage, your power is boundless. Back then, you even smashed the soaring Heaven King Palace as you wished. The entire heavenly court was intimidated by your Rui Jingu Bang. How could we be a match for you, Great Sage? If that's the case, the two of us would rather turn around and leave and fight with you. Hee hee, you two kids should have some self-awareness. I, old son, naturally won't fight seriously with you kids. I, old son, have 10 strands of hair here. Each of you can choose 1 strand of hair. These strands of hair will transform into monkeys with one of my abilities. As long as you defeat my strands of hair, I, old son, will let you pass. Chapter 979. As soon as the great sage, heaven's equal, finished speaking, 10 strands of monkey hair appeared out of thin air and floated in front of Gahan and Lu Qingmei. It was obvious that he wanted Gahan and Lu Qingmei to choose a strand of hair as their opponent. The 10 strands of hair made Gahan confused, but Lu Qingmei became even more excited. She could not help but ask the great sage, heavens equal excitedly, Great Sage, are these the strands of hair that Guanyin Bodhisattva gave you? Nonsense. These 10 strands of hair grew from my own body. What does it have to do with Guanyin Bodhisattva, that evil man? It's all made up by that old brat, Wu Qingzhen. He's ruining old son's reputation. The great sage, heaven's equal, said unhappily, Man, isn't Guanyin Bodhisattva a woman? The great sage, heaven's equal's words confused Lu Qingmei. Of course, Guanyin Bodhisattva is a man. What's so strange about that? Without waiting for the great sage, heaven's equal to answer, Gahan took the initiative and said, As for why Guanyin Bodhisattva was a man, there was a detailed explanation in the previous chapter. There is no need to repeat it here. Nonsense. How could Guanyin Bodhisattva be a man? What nonsense are you spouting? Lu Qingmei immediately turned around and questioned Gahan with her sharp tongue. Of course I have evidence. Back then, Guanyin Bodhisattva died in the hands of the longevity Jiandi, revealing his true form. The longevity Jiandi examined his body carefully. There was no doubt that he was a man. There are also photos and videos left in the archives. Anyone can look at them, Gahan said calmly. What the hell? We humans only have 4 Emperor Sword level sword bearers. I've never heard of a longevity Jiandi among the 4. After saying that, Lu Qingmei carefully counted her fingers. She thought about it again and again to confirm that there was indeed no Sword Emperor named Sword Emperor Longevity amongst the 4 Sword Emperors. You'll know in the future, Gahan said coolly. The longevity Jiandi was the Jiandi from hundreds of years in the future. The battle against Guanyin Bodhisattva had also happened hundreds of years in the future. How could she, Lu Qingmei, know what would happen hundreds of years later? All right. The two of you are making my head hurt. Little girl, let me tell you, Guanyin is just a stinky old man who deceives his master and destroys his ancestors. It's not as holy and great as you think it is. It's all because of those baldies bragging. The great sage, Heaven's equal decided the situation with one sentence. Enough. Hurry up and choose. After dealing with you guys, I, old son, still have to go back to sleep. The feeling of being woken up by you guys in the middle of sleep is really terrible. He had slept for 9 years. The great sage, Heaven's equal, was indeed the great sage, Heaven's equal. You choose first. Lu Qingmei gave the first choice to Gahan, because Lu Qingmei knew that it was Guhan's credit that she was able to arrive here. She was simply too embarrassed to be ahead of Gahan. No, you go first. You can explore the way for me. Any man with a little bit of intelligence would use some excuse like ladies first, but Guhan was different. He directly spoke his heart, without any deception at all. With Guhan's words, how could Lu Qingmei continue to refuse? She could only bitterly walk in front of the 10 strands of hair and carefully look at each strand of hair. Finally, she chose the shortest strand of hair and held it in her hand. The moment Lu Qingmei's hand touched the strand of hair instantly burned like a fuse. It turned into a large cloud of green smoke that condensed in the air. Finally, it turned into a monkey wearing a golden chainmail, a phoenix feather purple gold crown, and lotus root silk cloud-walking shoes. This monkey had round eyes, ears, a face full of hair, a thunderous mouth, and a body like a macaque eating pine cones. Although the monkey looked like a human, it lacked cheeks. To be honest, even if this monkey was placed in a pile of monkeys, it would still be considered ugly. Oh my God, it's exactly the same as on TV. After seeing the face of the great sage, Heaven's equal, Lu Qingmei didn't feel any fear. Instead, she stretched out her hand, wanting to touch the monkey's cheek. As a result, the monkey was startled by Lu Qingmei. It used its golden hairy hand to slap Lu Qingmei's head. Then, it quickly retreated a dozen steps and looked at Guhan and Lu Qingmei with one leg crossed over the other. Woo-woo, this is a competition between me and this young lady. That man, stay away from me. When the time comes, don't blame me for being merciless. The monkey waved its hand at Gahan. Guhan tactfully retreated to the edge of the stone monkey palace, giving the battlefield to Lu Qingmei and the great sage, Heaven's equal. Hee. Young lady, your luck is not bad. Do you know which ability did you choose? Monkey Son wasn't in a hurry to compete with Lu Qingmei. Instead, he looked at Lu Qingmei and asked with a smile. Well, Junior only knows that the great sage has 10 great abilities. However, I really don't know which of the 10 great abilities you chose. Lu Qingmei replied respectfully. Oh, you actually know that I, old son, have 10 great mystiques. All right then, tell me all of them, and I, old son, will tell you which mystique of mine you chose. The great sage, Heaven's equal, laughed even louder. All right then this junior will speak bluntly. If this junior is wrong, please forgive me, great sage. Lu Qingmei paused, cleared her throat, and said in one breath, Legend has it that the great sage, Heaven's equal, Monkey King Sun Wukong had 10 great abilities. The first ability is the great way of heavenly immortal art. It's the foundation of cultivation. It nourishes the golden core. When water and fire are not in harmony, it is immune to all diseases. It jumps out of the 3 realms of reincarnation and is not within the 5 elements of chaos. It seizes the fortune of heaven and earth and invades the mysteries of the sun and moon. It's one of the best abilities in the world. The second ability is the somersault cloud. One somersault can travel 108,000 miles. The third ability is the 72 transformations. Although it's called the 72 transformations, it can transform into anything in the world. The fourth ability is the outer body incarnation. The 84,000 feathers on your body can transform into doppelgangers. The fifth ability is the primordial spirit projection. The primordial spirit can fight in all directions. The sixth ability is the golden eyes, fiery eyes. The primordial spirit can identify all the demons in the world. The seventh ability is the diamond indestructible body. The primordial spirit is invulnerable to knives and axes, lightning, and poison. The eighth ability is the 999 arcane art. The primordial spirit can fight anywhere in the world. The ninth ability is the star shifting technique. The primordial spirit can turn the sun and moon upside down. The 10th ability is the Tao formula of the 10,000 arts. The primordial spirit can control all the arts in the world. The primordial spirit can turn stone into gold. These are the 10 great abilities of the great sage. I wonder if I'm correct. Lu Qingmei didn't pause at all. She listed the 10 great abilities in one breath. It was obvious that she had a deep understanding of the great sage. Thanks to Lu Qingmei, Guhan, who was listening at the side, finally understood the abilities of the great sage, heaven's equal. Not to mention other things, this great sage, heaven's equal, was indeed very powerful, especially his great grade heavenly immortal technique. According to Guhan, this was an ability that only the great overarching golden immortals of the heavenly court could have, and the great overarching golden immortals of the heavenly court were all above a universe grade Yuanko. Not bad. Little girl, you know old Sun very well. You actually got all the 10 great divine abilities right. The great sage, heaven's equal, scratched his monkey face. Then, little girl, which of my 10 mystiques do you think is the strongest and the weakest? The great sage's 10 great mystical powers are naturally the strongest. How could there be weak ones? Lu Qingmei's flattery was free of charge, and the great sage equaling heaven beamed with joy. However, Guhan had his own judgment. If what Lu Qingmei said was true, then the great sage, heaven's equal strongest mystic art, was his #1 sacred art, the great way of heavenly immortal art. This was the monkey's foundation. It was equivalent to the sword essence of a sword wielder. It was the foundation of all abilities. Without the first ability, the other 10 great abilities were simply bullsh *t. Therefore, the strongest ability was undoubtedly the first ability. As for the weakest, Gohan guessed that it would be the revolving star passage technique or the fiery golden eyes technique, since he didn't know much about the great sage. Good. Then I, old Sun, shall tell you, little girl, that you have chosen my 72 transformations. As the great sage, heaven's equal's voice fell, Lu Qingmei couldn't help but smile bitterly. The 72 transformations technique could be said to be the strongest ability apart from the great way of the heavenly immortal art. The 72 transformations technique might sound like there were only 72 transformations, but in reality, it referred to the 72 earthly fiends. The 72 earthly fiends corresponded to all the objects in the world that had fiendish chi. Anything with fiendish chi could be transformed into the 72 earthly fiends. P.S. Journey to the West did not explain the 72 transformations clearly. Later generations had a huge debate about this. They believed that the 72 transformations did not simply refer to other objects, but referred to 72 extraordinary abilities. Here is only one of the explanations, which is the most common one accepted by the masses. As soon as the great sage, heaven's equal's voice fell, the majestic monkey transformed into a mighty divine bull in the blink of an eye. It was snow white all over, had a head as big as a mountain, eyes that shone brightly, and 2 horns that were like 2 iron towers. This is a water buffalo? Gohan recognized the original form of this bull at a glance. However, compared to a normal water buffalo, this water buffalo was much more mighty and domineering. The fiendish chi coming from it seemed to be able to tear a person into pieces. Ha! Little girl, do you recognize who I have transformed into? Sun Wukong's appearance changed, and even his voice changed. From the shrill voice of a monkey, it became a dull bull's voice. Great sage, this is not a problem for me. I have read Journey to the West dozens of times. You have transformed into your good brother, the great sage who pacifies heavens, the Bull Demon King, right? Lu Qingmei said loudly. Not bad. Today, I will use my big brother bull's body to fight you. If you defeat this stupid bull, consider it my loss, and I will let you go. After the great sage, Heaven's equal let out a thunderous roar. He charged towards Lu Qingmei with an unstoppable momentum. No matter how one looked at it, Lu Qingmei could not possibly be a match for this Bull Demon King. Chapter 980. Old Sun, was defeated just like that. A helpless voice sounded in the Stone Monkey Palace. On the ground of the Stone Monkey Palace, a large pile of scattered corpses were placed neatly on the ground. These weren't ordinary corpses, but corpses that had been neatly dissected and placed in an orderly manner. Seeing these corpses, one couldn't help but feel hungry. Right in front of this pile of corpses was a serene bull's head. If it wasn't for the fact that this head was separated from a body, people who saw it might have thought that this bull's head was just sleeping. On the side of the bull's head was a piece of leather that looked like new clothes. It could be seen that this leather had been peeled off very beautifully. The entire leather, other than a small opening at the neck, didn't have any other parts that were damaged. It was as if a piece of clothing had been directly taken off from the bull's body. At first glance, people would think that this was a real bull. Oh right, it was worth mentioning that this was a very rare piece of white bull skin. It could be sold for a much higher price than ordinary bull skin. Behind the bull skin was the bull's tendon. This kind of elastic material was a rare item. It was pulled out completely without breaking and finally tied together like a rubber band. To the left of the bull's tendon were the bull's 5 viscera, or in other words, the bull's intestines. This included the bull's heart, bull's liver, bull's lungs, bull's tripe, bull's intestines, bull's loin, and bull's intestines. What was most surprising was that there was not a single trace of blood on the surface of the cow's offal. This was something that was almost impossible to achieve. Behind the bull's intestines, there was a plastic basin filled with bull's blood. The bull's blood was still emitting a fresh and flowing aura, as if it was still delivering all the necessary nutrients to the bull's body. The most eye-catching thing was the white bull's bones. The entire bull's bones didn't have any traces of being cut off, as if they were forcibly pulled out from the bull's body. After this butcher took out the bull's bones, he actually pieced them together again, forming a complete bull skeleton. It was just like those dinosaur skeletons in museums. One could vaguely see the appearance of a bull without a head. In the end, the most valuable thing was probably the piles of beef that had been categorized into more than a dozen types according to the different growing positions. There was beef neck, which was suitable for making beef meatballs, beef shoulder, which was suitable for curry, head, which was suitable for hot pot, breast, which was suitable for stew, beef, which was suitable for barbecue, and then there was beef loin, which was suitable for making steak. Anyway, there's a nice name called sirloin or sirloin steak. Like him, there was filet mignon, which was chosen for the tenderloin. Finally, there was the buttocks, which was very chewy, and then there was the sirloin, which was even more chewy. Finally, there was the tendon, which was the chewy one. Apart from that, there were also some strange beef that even Gahan didn't know which part of the cow it came from. Anyway, the beef was arranged in an orderly manner. It was even more perfect and appetizing than the beef produced in a standardized and professional slaughterhouse. I believe that everyone had already guessed that this poor white bull that had been professionally butchered and dismembered was our Bull Demon King. After a battle that made even Gahan feel dazzled, the Bull Demon King turned into a huge pile of beef on the ground. On the other side of the battle, our Miss Lu Qingmei didn't suffer any injuries at all. She looked indifferent, as if killing a Bull Demon King wasn't a difficult task. TSK, you monster, what kind of sorcery did you use? You actually dismembered my big brother in just a few moves? The great sage, equaling heaven's rationality, seemed to be in a mess. He actually called Lu Qingmei a monster. Logically speaking, you, the great sage equaling heaven, are the real monster. In reply to great sage's words, my sword maiden isn't a monster, nor does she know any sorcery. This is just pure swordsmanship. Lu Qingmei replied weakly as she looked at the skinny little girl beside her. She looked as if she would be blown away by the wind. TSK, don't you dare lie to me, old Sunday. According to Fleeting Time, this sword maiden is just a famed sword maiden. The Bull Demon King that I transformed into may not be as powerful as the real Bull Demon King, but it's still a demon king. How could it be defeated by a mere sword maiden like you? The great sage, equaling heaven, was obviously unwilling to accept such a defeat. Oh, by the way, the demon king that the great sage, equaling heaven, referred to was the nether tier and the meteor tier Yuan Ko. The current Yuan Ko was still used to addressing the different tiers of Yuan Ko, according to his own tradition. He had yet to use the same form of address that the humans had given him. There's nothing strange about it. No matter what kind of bull he is, he's just a simple bull in my hands. The frail sword lady replied in a low and weak voice. She was Pao Ding, the nemesis of all bulls in the world. Pao Ding? I think I've heard of this name before. Let me think about when I heard it. The great sage, heaven's equal, fell into a long silence. The entire stone monkey palace also fell into a rare silence. After about 10 minutes, the monkey said with a sudden realization, "I, old son, remember now. Back then, when I returned from the Buddhist scriptures, I had some dealings with the big green bull that old Lord Taishang sat on. The great green bull loved to drink, and he would get drunk after drinking. He would tell me stories when he was drunk. He told me that he met a butcher called Pao Ding when he accompanied old Lord Taishang to the mortal world. Pao Ding went around bragging that he had slaughtered more than 100,000 bulls, and that angered the great green bull. I remember that all the bulls in the world are the great green bull's descendants. Even the bull demon king would greet the great green bull as his great-grandfather. Pao Ding killed 100,000 of the great green bull's sons and grandsons. Then, the big green ox transformed into its true form, intending to trample Pao Ding to death. Unexpectedly, Pao Ding casually raised his ox-slaughtering sword and easily subdued the big green ox. He even cut off the ox's tail at the same time. If old Lord Taishang hadn't returned quickly and redeemed the great green bull with 10 tails of gold, I wouldn't have had to suffer 81 tribulations on my journey to the west. I'd only, what's 81 minus 1? The great sage, heaven's equal, muttered to himself in distress. How much did 9 times 9 minus 1 mean? Is there such a thing? Lu Qingmei turned to look at Pao Ding and the sword lady beside her. Pao Ding nodded and replied, "That day, I saw a bull as tall as a mountain charging towards me. I was overjoyed and thought that this bull might be enough for me to use for 10 years. Unfortunately, the moment I chopped off the bull's tail, the Zhou royal family's librarian bought it back. Now that I think about it, I feel a little regretful. Later on, the bull's price increased by quite a bit. That bull could be sold for at least 12 taels of gold, but I only sold it for 10 taels of gold. It was a huge loss." "That's indeed quite a loss." Lu Qingmei nodded repeatedly when she heard Pao Ding's words. She began to feel heartache for the 2 taels of gold that she had lost thousands of years ago. It was as if the 2 taels of gold had slipped out of her hands. These 2 conversations entered Gohan's ears. Gohan's expression immediately changed. Although old Lord Taishang, the Yuan Ko, only existed in legends, based on how the Heavenly Court and the Jade Emperor himself treated old Lord Taishang with extreme respect, old Lord Taishang was definitely the most powerful desolate rank Yuan Ko. Gohan even suspected that old Lord Taishang might have surpassed the desolate rank and reached the level of a creation godhead. Otherwise, the Jade Emperor wouldn't have organized sacrifices to old Lord Taishang and the other 6 saints every year. As for old Lord Taishang's great green bull, it would be much more realistic than the ethereal old Lord Taishang. This was because the great green bull had been staying in the heavenly court's Tishita Palace until now. According to Zhetian Jindi's memories, she had hidden in the Tishita Palace for a while when she was wreaking havoc in the heavenly court. Zhetian Jindi had originally planned to kill the great green bull to avoid exposing his hiding place. However, after exchanging a dozen blows with the great green bull, he was shocked to find that the great green bull was actually a flood rank Yuan Ko. It was impossible for him to kill the great green bull in a short period of time. Thus, Zhetian Jindi and the great green bull reached a compromise. The great green bull wouldn't expose Zhetian Jindi's location, and Zhetian Jindi wouldn't hurt the great green bull. Jetian Jindi hid in the Tashita Palace for a full 3 days. After recovering from his injuries, he left the Tashita Palace. With Jetian Jindi's own words as proof, this great green bull was undoubtedly a flood rank Yuan Ko. Thus, it was only natural for him to call himself the ancestor of all bulls in the world. Such a terrifying old bull was almost slaughtered by the great green bull. From this, it could be seen that the great green bull was indeed the nemesis of all bulls in the world. To some extent, Lu Qingmei, a famed sword-rank sword wielder, already had the ability to kill an emperor. However, this ability was limited to the bull-type Yuan Ko. Unfortunately, in reality, after Lu Qingmei died, the Great Green Bull and the Great Green Bull were broken on the battlefield. Since then, there was no news of them. Even the Great Green Bull, a flood-rank Yuan Ko, could be killed by the Great Sage, heaven's equals incarnation of the Bull Demon King. Great Sage, did I pass the test? Lu Qingmei asked the Great Sage, heaven's equal respectfully. She was a little nervous as she waited for the Great Sage's judgment. Although Lu Qingmei had indeed killed the Bull Demon King, there was still some suspicion that she had resorted to trickery. If the Great Sage, heaven's equal, had not chosen to transform into the Bull Demon King, but into the Rock Demon King, Dragon Demon King, or any of the other brothers of the 7 Great Sages, then the Great Green Bull Demon King would not have been suppressed by the Great Sage, and Lu Qingmei would have lost without a doubt. Therefore, if the Great Sage, heaven's equal, used this as a reason to compete again, then Lu Qingmei would have nothing to say. She could only accept her fate. TSK, do you think that I, old son, am as untrustworthy as that fat pig? The Great Sage, heaven's equal, spat. I, old son, am a man of my word. Little girl, you have passed my stone monkey palace. Hurry up, there are more tests waiting for you. Chapter 981. The Great Sage, heaven's equal, was a man of his word. He let Lu Qingmei go. Now, only Gahan was left with no choice. Another strand of hair flew out from the void, replenishing the strand of hair that Lu Qingmei had consumed. Once again, there were 10 strands of hair flying in front of Guhan. Guhan did not hesitate at all and was too lazy to make a choice. He picked one of the 10 hairs and held it in his hand. The Great Sage, heaven's equal, repeated Lu Qingmei's trick and asked Gahan curiously, "Little fella, guess what kind of mystique you chose?" "I guess it's the 72 transformations." Guhan answered without hesitation. "Oh, why did you guess that? Didn't your friend choose that kind of mystique just now? Will there be a second 72 transformations?" The Great Sage, heaven's equal, asked curiously. "Who knows what will happen in this world? Just like how no one in this world can guess you. I don't think anyone can guess what kind of mystique the hair in my hand is." Guhan's soft bootlicking made the Great Sage, heaven's equal, feel much more refreshed. Actually, Guhan was very clear in his heart that choosing the hair, guessing the hair, was all bullshit. Since these hairs were created by the Great Sage, heaven's equal, what kind of mystique the hair represented was naturally decided by the Great Sage, heaven's equal. As long as the Great Sage, heaven's equal, was happy, he would lower the difficulty and let him go. This would save him a lot of time. "Cunning, you are such a dishonest child. Do you think that this bit of flattery can make me happy?" Unexpectedly, the Great Sage, heaven's equal, seemed to have seen through Guhan's flattery and reprimanded him harshly. Guhan couldn't help but blame himself. Indeed, he had looked down on this monkey too much. He had to be more serious when sucking up to someone. Look at how awkward it was now that he had been seen through. "Great Sage, please see that I'm not flattering you at all. I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart." Since he didn't know how to flatter, Guhan might as well flatter him to the end. "I, old son, will tell you the truth. You're unlucky to have drawn my 39 arcane art. From old son's point of view, you might as well just turn around and leave. I'm afraid your body won't be able to take a beating from me, old Sunday," said the Great Sage, heaven's equal. Clearly, in the eyes of the Great Sage, heaven's equal, the moment he used the 999 mysteries, he had already won. What the hell is this 39 Mysteries? Although Gahan had just listened to Lu Qingmei's brief introduction of the Great Sage, Heaven's equals 10 great magical powers, which included an introduction of the Triple Nine Mysteries, Gahan still couldn't comprehend it. However, in Lu Qingmei's introduction, the 39 Mysteries could only be used to fight in the heavens and on the earth. As for the specifics, Gahan wasn't clear. Not being ashamed to ask for help was a traditional virtue of the Chinese people. Therefore, Gahan immediately looked at Lu Qingmei inquiringly. Lu Qingmei wasn't stupid and immediately explained, according to the legend, the 39 Mysteries was created by the Taoist ancestor, Hongjun ancestor, to turn one's body into a sage. There are a total of 9 transformations. At the 3rd transformation, one can fight in the heavens and on the earth. At the 6th transformation, one will be invincible. At the 9th transformation, one can turn one's body into a sage. Even if the world is destroyed, one can live forever. The 39 Mysteries is actually the ability to refine one's body and weapons. The Great Sage, Heaven's equals Rui Jingu Bang, killed countless demons. In fact, he relied on this 39 Mysteries. Lu Qingmei's explanation allowed Gahan to understand the mystery of the 39 Mysteries. It turned out that the 39 Mysteries was similar to his 9 swords of mysterious heaven. They both taught people how to use weapons to refine their bodies. The Great Sage, Heaven's equals myriad of spells, all had their origins. They came from different supernatural powers. However, his life's martial arts in hand-to-hand combat probably came from the 39 Mysteries. Little boy, you really know me very well. You even know the 39 Mysteries, a supernatural power that old man Wu Qingjin doesn't know about. I'm a little curious about you. Lu Qingmei only felt a pair of fiery golden eyes staring fiercely at her from the void, immediately causing her to shiver. This shiver went from the top of her head to the soles of her feet. Just because of this gaze, Lu Qingmei felt exhausted. Lu Qingmei knew that she had made the Great Sage, Heaven's equal, angry with her. Therefore, she could only shut her mouth and look at Gahan helplessly, indicating that she couldn't say anything more. But there's no harm in telling you. I, old son, am not afraid of anything. Do you think I'm afraid that you know some tricks? The Great Sage, Heaven's equal, chuckled. To tell you the truth, little boy, although you're going to face a Great Sage, Heaven's equal, who can't use spells, he is also a Great Sage, Heaven's equal, who can use this staff with all his strength. After saying this, the strand of hair in Gahan's hand transformed into the valiant and invincible monkey that had appeared before. The monkey gently dug his ear and took out something that looked like an embroidery needle from his ear. This embroidery needle grew with the wind and finally grew into a staff as tall as a person. On it, there were mountains and rivers, as well as the words Rui Jingu Bang, 13,500 Jin. Good boy, have a taste of my staff. The Great Sage, Heaven's equal, was also an unreasonable person. Holding the Rui Jingu Bang in his hand, he didn't say a word and directly swung it towards Gahan's head. This was a powerful blow from the Great Sage, Heaven's equal. If it landed, Gahan's brain would probably be smashed and he would die on the spot. Good staff technique. At the same time, Gahan could also see that the Great Sage, Heaven's equal, had mastered the essence of the staff technique. It was a move that could break through the void and hit the real thing. Although it was only one move, it was better than thousands of moves. From this one move, it could be seen that the Great Sage, Heaven's equal staff technique was probably ranked in the top 3 among all the staff users in the world. The Great Sage, Heaven's equal staff technique was very clever. If it had happened in the Guanghui amusement park, Gahan wouldn't have been able to think of a way to deal with this move other than running away. However, after a few months of emergency special training, Gahan's swordsmanship had reached another level. This move of the Great Sage, Heaven's equal, allowed Gahan to vaguely see a few flaws in it. Therefore, Gahan didn't show any weakness. He waved the Qi Dian sword in his hand and charged towards the Great Sage, Heaven's equal. Both of their weapons clashed in the air, producing a sound effect that sounded like a ton of TNT exploding. Both of them were absolute experts in their respective domains, peak experts. According to Guhan's thoughts, this battle should be evenly matched, with neither of them winning nor losing. However, what Guhan didn't expect was that when Guhan's Qidian's sword clashed with the Great Sage, Heavens equals Rui Jingu Bang, the huge force from the Great Sage, Heavens equals Rui Jingu Bang wasn't something that Guhan could withstand. The Rui Jingu Bang weighed 13,500 kilograms, which was 6,750 kilograms. With a weight of 61.75 tons, it was equivalent to the weight of one 5-type 59 tanks. With the support of the Great Sage, Heavens equals huge body, the impact on Guhan's Qidian sword was equivalent to the impact of 5-type 59 tanks. This wasn't a force that Guhan's arms could withstand. Therefore, although Guhan wasn't at a disadvantage in terms of his moves, he was caught off guard by the huge force of the Rui Jingu Bang. The Qidian sword in his hand flew out and landed on the ground. Swoosh! A gust of wind sounded. Guhan saw the Rui Jingu Bang at the tip of his nose. If the Great Sage, Heaven's equal, had moved a little further, Guhan's head would have been smashed into pieces. Thank you, Great Sage, for sparing my life. Guhan quickly cupped his fists. You're a good opponent to be able to withstand my strike. It's rare for me to exercise my muscles. I don't want to kill you so easily. The Great Sage, Heaven's equal, spun the Rui Jingu Bang in his hand. However, you seem to be looking down on me. That strike just now wasn't your strongest state. Do you think that I'm not worthy of your full strength? I wouldn't dare. I know my mistake. Guhan's words were actually quite interesting. Although he said that he knew his mistake, he also admitted that he hadn't used his full strength just now. Go then, pick up your sword, then come and fight me, old son. As the Great Sage, Heaven's equal's voice fell, he suddenly extended the Rui Jingu Bang in his hand and sent Guhan's head flying like a billiard ball. Guhan's head landed beside the Qidian sword. Great Sage, I'm sorry. Guhan grabbed the Qidian sword beside him. He didn't use the 9 swords of mysterious heaven to deal with it. Instead, he used the chaos splitting heaven from the chaos sword technique. At the same time, Guhan tried his best to avoid a head-on clash with the Great Sage, Heaven's equal. He displayed the softness of the sword to the extreme and never fought the Great Sage, Heaven's equal, directly. Instead, he only tangled with him from the side. For a moment, the two of them fought at close quarters, causing the weather to change and the waves to surge. The entire stone monkey palace was filled with rapid whistling sounds. These sounds were all caused by the speed at which the weapons were brandished, which surpassed the speed of sound. This was a sound that was sufficient to shatter one's eardrums. Oh my God, this Guhan is actually on par with the Great Sage, Heaven's equal. Although Lu Qingmei had won, she didn't leave the stone monkey palace. Her strong curiosity made her want to know the final result of the battle between Guhan and the Great Sage, Heaven's equal. Actually, when Lu Qingmei heard that Guhan would use his full strength to face the Great Sage, Heaven's equal's Rui Jingu Bang, Lu Qingmei already had an answer in her heart. It was impossible for Guhan to defeat the Great Sage, Heaven's equal. This kind of monster that only the Buddha could subdue was not something a young guy like Guhan could handle. In Lu Qingmei's guess, if Guhan could withstand 3 strikes from the Great Sage, Heaven's equal, it would already be a blessing from the heavens. It would be worth beating gongs and drums and celebrating. Perhaps it could even be written into a novel or filmed into a TV series. The first battle between Guhan and the Great Sage, Heaven's equal, seemed to confirm Lu Qingmei's guess. The Great Sage, Heaven's equal strike sent the sword lady in Guhan's hand flying. If he struck again, Guhan would die on the spot. Therefore, at this moment, Lu Qingmei instinctively wanted to persuade Guhan to surrender immediately and not to fight with the Great Sage, Heaven's equal. However, before Lu Qingmei could persuade him, Guhan had once again fought with the Great Sage, Heaven's equal. Then, it was hard to separate them. This scene made Lu Qingmei want to slap herself to confirm that she was not dreaming. Chapter 982. You're quite capable to be able to fight me to a draw. After another round of fighting, the great sage, heaven's equal, and Guhan stood facing each other. The Monkey King took the initiative to praise Guhan. If the great sage, heaven's equal, admitted that he could fight him to a draw, Guhan's swordsmanship could officially be ranked among the top 10 in the world since ancient times. You're flattering me, great sage. I don't dare to fight you head-on. I can only help you by the side. Guhan shook his head. This was Guhan's truth. Guhan was still not a match for the great sage, heaven's equal, in a head-on fight. After all, the great sage's strength was too violent. A single strike from him could send Guhan flying. You little brat, listen carefully. This is my last strike. If you can withstand this strike, I'll consider it your victory and let you pass. If you can't, don't blame me for being merciless. I'll beat you to death here. At this point, the great sage, heaven's equal, revealed a fierce and irritable expression on his face. Logically speaking, as the guardian of a palace, no matter how badly the great sage, heaven's equal, beat up his opponent, even if his opponent's limbs were broken and his internal organs were crippled, it would not be a big problem for him to be able to catch his breath. However, the great sage, heaven's equal, could not kill his opponent. Otherwise, how would fleeting Jindi, who set up the test, be able to face himself? A mere test had actually killed a young man who wanted to become his disciple. Even if Sword Emperor Liuanian had an extremely high status in the human race, this was absolutely inexcusable. However, it was clear that the great sage, heaven's equal, was not lying. His staff strike could really kill Guhan. This was not an exaggeration. This was the great sage, heaven's equal's nature. He did whatever he wanted and could not be restrained by others. Even after becoming the victorious fighting Buddha, countless demons had died under the great sage, equal to heaven's cudgel. In this world, the only thing that could make the great sage, equal to heaven, obey the rules was probably the band-tightening curse. At this moment, Guhan couldn't care less. He was fully focused on the Rui Jingu Bang in the great sage, heaven's equal's hand. He was prepared to see how powerful the great sage, heaven's equal's final strike would be. As expected, this was not a simple blow. The great sage, heaven's equal, threw the Rui Jingu Bang in his hand into the air. The Rui Jingu Bang instantly shrunk to an extremely small size, even smaller than a needle. In the eyes of the great sage, heaven's equal, Guhan began to panic. He looked around warily, trying to find the Rui Jingu Bang that had disappeared. However, Guhan had forgotten to look at one place, which was directly above Guhan's head. At this moment, above Guhan's head, the Rui Jingu Bang that had disappeared reappeared and began to grow thicker and bigger rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it had become the size of a small mountain. It was only when Guhan noticed that the shadow on the ground was not right that he realized the change above his head. However, it was too late. The Rui Jingu Bang pressed down with the force of Mount Tai and finally hit the ground heavily. Boom! Lu Qingmei felt that the entire Mount skyscraping was shaken by the impact. On the other side, the great sage, heaven's equal, let out the unique laughter of a monkey. You had just fought with me, old Sunday. You still have to be suppressed under the 5 Elements Mountain for 500 years. Is that so? As the great sage, heaven's equal's voice fell, a long sword pierced through the stinky monkey's heart from the back and out from the front, giving Sun Wukong a chill. Little guy, you have some skills. Sun Wukong muttered. The clone transformed from the hair dispersed like smoke, leaving no trace. Military Governor, you're so awesome. Seeing that the clone of the great sage, heaven's equal, had disappeared, Lu Qingmei immediately jumped to the side of the military governor excitedly. She patted the military governor hard on the shoulder and couldn't help but exclaim, "You actually killed the great sage, heaven's equal, Sun Wukong, with your sword skills. I'm afraid that even if I tell others about this, no one will believe me. That was really scary." Cough, cough. Little girl, how can you say that? When did he kill me, old son? Isn't I? old sun, right here?" As this voice sounded, the void door opened, and the sun Wukong just now walked out of the void door. Just by looking at the aura of this sun Wukong, it was more than 10 times stronger than the sun Wukong that was transformed from the hair. Obviously, this monkey was the great sage, Heaven's equal. Gahan thought to himself that if he were to fight with the sun Wukong, he would probably be defeated by the great sage, Heaven's equal, in less than 5 moves. It wasn't that Gohan's sword skills weren't good, but the difference in strength between the two of them was too big. It was like how an ant, no matter how powerful its martial arts were, could be trampled to death by a human's foot. "Greetings, great sage." Seeing that the sun Wukong had appeared, Lu Qingmei hurriedly bowed to show her respect. She even pressed her hand on the back of Gahan's neck and bowed together with Gahan. "Enough. Sun Wukong, don't fall for this. If you have time, bow to your parents. Why are you fawning over me, a stinky monkey?" The great sage, Heaven's equal, waved his hand, and Gahan felt a force lifting him and Lu Qingmei up. However, as the great sage, Heaven's equal, spoke, the great sage, Heaven's equal's appearance began to change again. The golden monkey fur all over his body fell off, and the sharp mouth of the thunder god also slowly became gentle. After a series of changes, the entire monkey body actually turned into the appearance of a black-haired old man with a pair of spiritual eyes. Teacher's 6 children. Lu Qingmei was stunned when she saw the old man's appearance. She never expected that Sun Wukong would turn into this person after transforming into a human. Although this was the most famous and lifelike old man in history who played the role of Sun Wukong, he was, after all, just an actor. How could the great sage, Heaven's equal, look like this after transforming into a human? Was this purely a coincidence? I didn't expect that there would still be people who recognize me in this world. The old man chuckled and walked to Gahan's side. "Young man, you're not bad. You even gave me a big scare. How did you get behind me?" "Great sage, although your Rui Jingu Bang is awe-inspiring and full of killing intent, I saw a trace of intentional life in it. However, I saw a trace of life within. It was clear that the great sage was benevolent and wanted to let me go. I used this trace of life to escape, and then used the shaking of the mountains and earth to hide behind the great sage." Gahan answered honestly. "You're wrong. It wasn't that the monkey was kind and wanted to let you go. It was me who stopped him at the crucial moment. Otherwise, you would have really been crushed into meat paste by the Rui Jingu Bang." The old man said with a gloomy expression. "What do you mean?" The words of the 6 children caused Gahan and Lu Qingmei's expressions to change. The amount of information contained in those words was too great. "Sigh, I can't bear to look back on the past. I didn't think that such a change would happen when that day came. I actually became the thing that I played for my entire life. But then again, never mind, there's no need to tell you about these things." The 6 children didn't continue after saying that. They looked like they couldn't explain everything in a few words. However, from this sentence, Gahan vaguely analyzed the situation. The 6 children in front of him did not seem to be the great sage, Heaven's equal. They were just demons with the appearance of a human. The 6 children seemed to have originally been a human, but had become the great sage, Heaven's equal, during the apocalypse. However, the 2 of them were not a unified whole. It was as if there were 2 consciousnesses sharing the same body. Of course, there were still many mysteries. What kind of state the 6 children and the great sage, Heaven's equal, were in, even Gahan could not figure it out. "Little fellow, listen to me. I forced myself to come out today because I hope that you can bring a message to the fleeting year calendar." The 6 children suddenly said in a serious tone, "Senior, you must be joking. There's still 3 more checkpoints. I don't know if I can pass them. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to meet Lord Kinzu." Gahan said seriously. "However, I can guarantee that I'll do my best to move forward." "Kinzu? What Kinzu?" The 6 children frowned. Only then did Gahan realize that he had accidentally let the cat out of the bag. It was only 10 years after the disappearance of Kinzu that humans would give the fleeting year calendar the title of Kinzu. Before that, there was no Kinzu in the world. Junior's mouth slipped. I was talking about the fleeting year calendar patriarch Jiandi. In short, Kinzu. Guhan hurriedly added. Hee. That guy can be called a patriarch? The sixth child chuckled and said, You don't have to worry about the next checkpoint. This old man can guarantee that you'll be able to see the fleeting calendar's little guy. Remember, when you see the fleeting year calendar, you must help me tell him that all obsessions are inferior. Only sincerity can last forever. Everything in the world has its own rules. Everything has been written in the heavenly book. It's not him, not you, and not me. The more he does, the more mistakes he will make. It's better for him to dissipate. After saying this, the six children returned to the void. Guhan and Lu Qingmei looked at each other and memorized this sentence. They then walked towards the next palace. When Guhan and Lu Qingmei left the Stone Monkey Palace, a figure appeared at the entrance of the Stone Monkey Palace. This person was none other than the Cardinal Sword Spirit. The Cardinal Sword Spirit was extremely excited when he saw the sky-mending stone in the middle of the Stone Monkey Palace. He rubbed his whole body against the sky-mending stone like a kitten or puppy. Eat my staff. Unexpectedly, after the Cardinal Sword Spirit rubbed against the sky-mending stone a few times, a Rui Jingu Bang came out of the void and hit the Cardinal Sword Spirit's lower abdomen. The Cardinal Sword Spirit was knocked out of the Stone Monkey Palace and flew back to the entrance of the 12 heavenly palaces. This was why the scene at the beginning of chapter 959 happened. The Cardinal Sword Spirit didn't think that there was anything wrong with this. This was the great sage's personality. He didn't catch the Rui Jingu Bang because he wasn't strong enough. However, if the Cardinal Sword Spirit knew that the two people who passed the checkpoint had the choice of choosing 1 out of the 10 hairs, he might vomit blood and die from anger. Chapter 983. Military Governor. What do you think is going on with the great sage, heaven's equal, and the 6 little children? Why do I get the feeling that there's a huge secret hidden in this? Lu Qingmei had been thinking about this question along the way, but she could not come up with an answer. She had no choice but to turn to the seemingly smarter military governor. Perhaps. Gahan was clearly not interested in the 6 little children and the great sage, heaven's equal. Truth be told, he had no idea what the 6 little children and the great sage, heaven's equal, were, and what their relationship was. How could he possibly know the answer to such a question? But I think there's something else we should be concerned about. Don't you think it's strange? We haven't even seen the 10th palace yet. Lu Qingmei was shocked to realize that she had been away from the Stone Monkey Palace for quite some time now, after hearing the military governor's words. Logically speaking, the 10th palace should have appeared in front of them the moment they left the Stone Monkey Palace. But now, they were walking on a mountain path shrouded in mist, and the 10th palace was nowhere to be seen. The 12 skyscraping palaces are obviously named according to the order of the Chinese zodiac. According to the rules, the 10th palace should be related to chickens. Lu Qingmei mumbled to herself. Say, what should the 10th palace be called? Rooster Palace? Hen Palace? Little Chicken Palace? But why do I have a feeling that according to Jiandi's naming style, it's more likely to be called Rooster Palace? When Lu Qingmei spoke of the Chicken Palace, her voice had already become extremely soft. Moreover, after saying these 3 words, her face became even redder. At the same time, she secretly cursed herself for being shameless. I must have been influenced by this stinky military governor. My mouth is full of nonsense. Look, what's that? Said the military governor as he pointed to the front. Lu Qingmei followed the direction of the military governor's finger and saw a chicken coop in the middle of a field of grass. The coop was deserted, and there was not a single chicken in sight. Guhan and Lu Qingmei walked into the coop and discovered that there were 2 chicken nests in the coop. An egg was placed on each of the nests and nothing else. What does that mean? Could this be a test for us? Lu Qingmei keenly sensed that this chicken coop and these 2 eggs should be related to the 10th palace's test. The reason was simple. According to the order of the 12 zodiac signs, the 10th house should be a test related to chickens, and there happened to be a chicken coop and 2 eggs here. Even a fool could guess that there must be a connection between them. Lu Qingmei walked around the chicken coop, but she couldn't find any hints. She didn't know what kind of test it represented. Lu Qingmei searched for a long time. Her forehead was full of sweat, but she still couldn't find any clues. On the other hand, Gohan stood there calmly without moving, which made Lu Qingmei a little angry. She angrily returned to the military governor's side and said, "What are you doing here? I've been looking for half a day. Now it's your turn." "All right." Gohan agreed readily. He didn't say much and directly stepped into the chicken coop. He sat on one of the chicken coop and pressed the egg under his butt. "What are you doing? What if you crush the egg?" Lu Qingmei said in a panic. "Of course I'm incubating the egg," Gohan said calmly. "The chicken coop in a normal chicken coop should be one, not divided into two separate chicken coop like this. More importantly, don't you think this chicken coop is too big for a hen?" After Gohan finished speaking, he didn't explain anything. Although Lu Qingmei wanted to refute the military governor, she couldn't say anything. Obviously, Lu Qingmei also felt that what the military governor said made sense. Helpless, Lu Qingmei could only imitate the military governor and sat next to the military governor, putting the egg under her butt. However, after sitting on it, Lu Qingmei couldn't help but say, "I heard that it takes 21 days for a hen to incubate an egg. Are we going to sit here for 21 days? I'll sit here for an hour at most." Gohan opened his eyes and turned his head to Lu Qingmei. "If there's no reaction from this egg within an hour, I'll kill myself." What? What did you say?" Lu Qingmei was stunned. This military governor was too cruel to himself. If the egg couldn't hatch within an hour, he could just give up the skyscraping 12 temples test and go down the mountain. Why would he kill himself? Was this person crazy? Lu Qingmei didn't have time to think about it. Suddenly, she felt a movement under her, but Lu Qingmei could clearly feel the egg under her, but shaking slowly. At the same time, there was a slight knocking sound from the inside of the eggshell to Lu Qingmei's butt. It was as if there was a little life in the eggshell that was about to break out. Damn, it's only been a few minutes, and it's about to hatch. Lu Qingmei turned her head to look at the Admiral's reaction, only to find that he had already stood up from the chicken coop. The egg under his buttocks began to vibrate violently like a jumping egg. At the same time, cracks began to appear on the eggshell. It was obvious that the chick was about to break out of its shell. At the same time, Lu Qingmei found that the egg under her but had also become a jumping egg. The vibration made her lower body feel numb. Lu Qingmei quickly jumped up from the chicken coop and found that there were some faint water stains on the eggshell. She immediately looked at the military governor with a guilty conscience. When she found that the other party didn't pay attention to her egg, she breathed a sigh of relief and began to quietly wait for her chick to hatch. Because Gohan hatched earlier than Lu Qingmei, Gohan's chick was also the first to come out of the eggshell. When a new life broke out of the eggshell in Gohan's egg and came to this brand new world, Lu Qingmei, who was watching all this, seemed to feel the glory and shock of life. But what made Lu Qingmei feel a little strange was that when the military governor's chick was born, the military governor had been standing there motionlessly without any reaction, as if he had been completely shocked and could not speak. TSK, a country bumpkin who hasn't seen the world, Lu Qingmei said unceremoniously in her heart. At this time, her chick was about to break out. Lu Qingmei suddenly felt a sense of excitement as a mother. She immediately turned her attention back from the military governor and looked at the chick that floated out. When the chick tried its best to peck the eggshell, Lu Qingmei saw the chick's black and white eyes for the first time. Lu Qingmei suddenly felt dizzy. The whole world became a kaleidoscope in an instant, and her spirit completely fell into a state of confusion. When everything returned to calm, Lu Qingmei's consciousness also regained consciousness. Lu Qingmei was surprised to find that the whole world was different. The original normal world became small in Lu Qingmei's eyes at this time, and Lu Qingmei felt that her body had become very strange. Especially her feet seemed to have become extraordinarily slender, and even her body could not support it. What was more terrible was that Lu Qingmei suddenly found that there was a giant in front of her. The height was dozens of times higher than her, just like the legendary Ultraman. Did I come to the legendary giant country? But soon Lu Qingmei reflected that the giant in front of her was not Ultraman, but herself. Yes, the giant in front of Lu Qingmei was Lu Qingmei's own body. G. Lu Qingmei wanted to speak, but the sound coming out of her mouth turned into these cries. Lu Qingmei panicked. She looked down at her body and was surprised to find that her body had suddenly become fluffy and wet. Her whole body was covered with feathers that were stuck together by some kind of mucus. She wanted to wave her hands, but found that what she waved was a pair of bare wings. What's going on? Could it be that I've become a chick? After a while, although she was not willing to believe this fact, Lu Qingmei had to admit that she had become the chick that had just broken out of its shell. At this time, Lu Qingmei's fear, and loneliness could be imagined. She immediately looked at the position of the military governor, wanting to confirm the situation of the military governor. What made her feel relieved was that the military governor's body was also standing motionless in the same place as her body, but the military governor's chick seemed to be extraordinarily calm. It didn't flap its wings randomly like Lu Qingmei, nor did it look around in fear like Lu Qingmei. Its pair of small eyes didn't have the same kind of fear like Lu Qingmei. Instead, it revealed a kind of calm wisdom. However, it was this kind of calm wisdom that made Lu Qingmei confirm that the military governor had also entered the chick's body like her. Otherwise, how could the eyes of a newborn chick reveal the calm light of wisdom? Lu Qingmei struggled to break out of the eggshell with her little chicken legs, but Lu Qingmei was obviously not proficient in using this new body. After struggling for a long time, she was still stuck in the eggshell and could not get out. Just when Lu Qingmei was feeling completely disheartened, she suddenly felt something hit her hard, abruptly knocking her out of the eggshell. Lu Qingmei raised her little chick's head in doubt and saw another chick standing in front of her, listening to her body valiantly and looking at her quietly. Is this the military governor? Lu Qingmei could not help but show a trace of a bitter smile. I'm really too bad. I didn't expect that at this time. I still need the military governor to save me. But then again, men are really more reliable. Lu Qingmei's little chick's face actually showed a shy expression. Chapter 984. After struggling for a while, Lu Qingmei finally managed to control the chick's body, and at the same time, she also understood the situation she was in. She had indeed become a chick that was hatched by herself. Although this was something that was extremely against scientific principles. Since something like Yuan Ko could appear, it was not surprising that she had become a chick. No, we did not become a chick. We are still us. Our consciousness has just left our bodies. Suddenly, the voice of the military governor came from Lu Qingmei's chick's head. However, this voice was not transmitted in the form of sound, but in a more direct way of thought, as if the thoughts of the military governor had directly appeared in Lu Qingmei's mind. What do you mean? Lu Qingmei wanted to ask, but the words that came out of her mouth were the sounds of a chick's chirping. Haven't I made myself clear enough? You can't even understand this? The thoughts of the military governor sounded again. Wait, I didn't speak. How do you know what I'm talking about? Lu Qingmei was still making chirping sounds, but it was obvious that the military governor could understand what Lu Qingmei was saying. This is the best evidence, the military governor explained. Because our consciousness has left our bodies, I can't hear what you want to say without using sound. Similarly, if you use your thoughts to perceive, you can also know what I want to say. Well, explaining these things to Lu Qingmei is a very tedious thing. We will not repeat them one by one. Anyway, it took Gahan about 10 minutes to explain to Lu Qingmei clearly. What the military governor meant was that they did not become a chick, they were still human beings, but their consciousness had been transferred to the chick's body by some means, or their consciousness was still in their own brain, but through some means connected with the chick's brain, they could perceive and control the chick's every move. The simplest evidence was that the bodies of Gahan and Lu Qingmei were still in the position when they lost consciousness, and the physical signs of their bodies were still stable, and their chests were also moving up and down vigorously. These two bodies did not seem to be dead. Instead, they seemed to be in a deep sleep. According to Gahan's metaphor, their bodies had become a remote control, controlling the little chicks' every move. However, this remote control had lost control of itself, so it looked like it had become a little chick. This was also the reason why Gahan was able to communicate with Lu Qingmei through his consciousness. It was because their consciousnesses had become independent, free from the constraints of their bodies. Then what should we do now? After finally figuring out the situation and learning to communicate with her consciousness, Lu Qingmei asked the military governor in a panic. All the previous tests had prompts, and as long as one followed the prompts, they would be able to move forward. It was completely different from the current situation. There were no prompts at all, and she had turned into a chicken. Lu Qingmei was completely at a loss. I guess the test of the 10th palace has already begun. As long as we can regain control of our bodies, I think we can pass the test of the 10th palace. Although the military governor's words were just a simple judgment without any evidence to support it, Lu Qingmei felt that it was very reliable. But when Lu Qingmei heard it, she felt that it was very reliable. She couldn't help but believe the commander's words, because no matter what, even if regaining control of the body couldn't pass the test of the 10th palace, regaining control of the body wouldn't go wrong. People always couldn't help but want to return to the state of life they were used to. So the question now was, what should Lu Qingmei and Gahan do to return to their original state? One had to know that there were no prompts in the whole chicken coop, and Lu Qingmei and Gahan's bodies were just two newborn chicks. What gave Lu Qingmei a headache was that the chicken brain, especially the chicken brain, was about the size of a watermelon seed. Using her brain to think about some problems made Lu Qingmei feel mentally exhausted. She was eager to find a place to sleep. I don't know. Gahan's thought was transmitted coldly. I'm sleepy. I'm going to sleep first. Lu Qingmei turned her chicken head and saw the military governor's chicken lying in the chicken coop and sleeping, as if he did not care about the fact that he had become a chicken. Lu Qingmei was helpless, and at the same time, she could not resist the waves of sleepiness. She could only sleep with the military governor. Lu Qingmei was awakened by bursts of hunger. When she opened her eyes, she found that her body was constantly feeling hungry. It was a hunger that could only be felt after starving for a month. If she could, Lu Qingmei felt that she could eat at least 200 to 300 chicken legs. Wait, what are you eating? When Lu Qingmei turned around, she found that the military governor was actually eating a white thing with relish. This bad guy, there was delicious food, but he did not call me. Eggshell, the military governor replied concisely. Lu Qingmei looked carefully. That white thing was indeed an eggshell. How can you eat this thing? Can this thing be eaten? Lu Qingmei said incredulously. The eggshell of living creatures is rich in calcium and some trace elements that can help the growth of chicks. Eating one's own eggshell can not only replenish the energy that chicks need, but also accelerate the growth of chicks and strengthen the chick's bones. Simply put, eating one's own eggshell is a thing that has hundreds of advantages and no disadvantages. If you're not interested in your own eggshell, then I can help you eat your eggshell. Get lost. This is my thing. I'm not letting you eat it. When Lu Qingmei heard this, she immediately flapped her young chicken wings to protect her own eggshell. Then she could not wait to use her small mouth to peck the finest piece of eggshell into her stomach. These eggshells that Lu Qingmei usually would feel uncomfortable when she ate them, and she would not even touch them. At this time, in Lu Qingmei's mouth, the eggshell suddenly became a delicious taste. When it entered her stomach, she felt a little more strength in her body, and the taste was as crisp and delicious as if it was connected to her bones. Lu Qingmei, who had a great appetite, quickly ate all the eggshells into her stomach. Suddenly, she felt that her body had regained its strength, and even her height seemed to have grown a little. The originally sticky feathers on her body had completely stretched out, turning into warm and lovely golden fluff. Are you full? Let's go out and explore. I think there must be some hints around here, Gahan said to Lu Qingmei. Without waiting for her reply, he directly jumped out of the chicken coop and headed towards the unknown outside. Wait for me. Lu Qingmei did not want to stay in the chicken coop alone. She could only follow behind the military governor as they explored the unknown world together. The next hour was the strangest hour of Lu Qingmei's life. She observed the world from the perspective of a little chick and discovered that the world was completely different. It was filled with strange novelty and terrifying interests. The grass that usually didn't reach Lu Qingmei's ankles had now become a jungle as tall as her in Lu Qingmei's eyes. The small stones in the past had become towering boulders. Lu Qingmei also found a rubber tire left here by someone. At this time, the rubber tire looked like a Ferris wheel. Lu Qingmei had discovered many interesting things in the past hour, but none of them had anything to do with the method of turning back into a human. Aside from the bushes and trash, there was nothing else. There were no hints at all. Or did Sword Emperor Lun Yin not leave any hints about turning back into a human? Just as Lu Qingmei was feeling despair, she suddenly discovered some very bright, colored things in the distant underbrush. She immediately spread her little chicken legs and dashed towards the object, only to find that it was actually a magazine. Bosom Friend Story Club, February 2017, issue 984. A Scam of Desire? Are we all slaves to desire? Germany's orthopedics department. Why are Chinese youngsters heading to Germany for treatment? Just how big is the gap between China and Germany? Return to your heart. Don't let the mundane world taint your heart. The Tortoise Race with the Hare. The Tortoise's Shocking Conspiracy. From a sister to a daughter to a wife. My world cannot be without her. The story here. China's population policy has been turbulent for 50 years. Seeing these very familiar titles, Lu Qingmei's little chicken head revealed a trace of smile. Seeing these titles, Lu Qingmei felt a sense of joy in her heart. At the same time, she also felt a burst of curiosity. According to the time, this Bosom Friend Story Club had already been written for 60 years. 60 years ago, the great calamity had yet to descend upon this world. Mankind was still in a state of joy and laughter, and Lu Qingmei's grandfather had only just been born. Lu Qingmei wanted to know what the world was like 60 years ago. Therefore, Lu Qingmei instinctively wanted to open the book and read the story inside. However, it was a little too difficult for Lu Qingmei to flip the book. Her pair of young chicken wings couldn't be used at all. She could only use her own pair of chicken claws to try to open the book. But unfortunately, after 60 years of wind and rain, the pages of Bosom Friend Story Club had long been firmly stuck together. Lu Qingmei's little chicken claws were simply unable to open this Bosom Friend Story Club. On the other side, Guhan noticed Lu Qingmei's strangeness and walked to Lu Qingmei's side. Just by looking at the Bosom Friend Story Club for the first time, Guhan's eyes instantly lit up, and the whole chick began to get excited. Don't move. Don't destroy the book. Guhan quickly stopped Lu Qingmei. What's wrong? It's just a magazine, Lu Qingmei said unhappily. It's just a magazine. This is the clue to us becoming human again, Guhan said loudly. Chapter 985. Clue? How can there be any clue in a magazine from 60 years ago? Lu Qingmei asked, puzzled. Look carefully at the title on the cover of this magazine, and then read the first word of these titles together, Guhan said as he stepped on the cover. Lu Qingmei then turned her attention back to the title on the cover. The Scam of Desire. We are all slaves of desire. German orthopedics. Why do Chinese youngsters go to Germany for treatment? How big is the medical gap between China and Germany? Return to your heart. Don't let worldly affairs pollute your heart. The Tortoise Race with the Hare. The Tortoise's Shocking Conspiracy. From my sister to my daughter to my wife, and finally to the court. My world can't be without her. The story here, China's population policy has been turbulent for 50 years. Desire to return to the tortoise. Desire to return to the tortoise. Lu Qingmei timidly linked the first words of these titles together. After reading through it a few times, she immediately came to a realization. If you want to return, you have to start from here. Could it be that the way to return is hidden in this magazine? Lu Qingmei immediately felt excited, but at the same time, she felt deeply ashamed. She was the one who found this magazine first, but her attention was completely attracted by the contents of these titles. She only wanted to read the words in the magazine, but she didn't even think about whether there was a deeper meaning hidden in these titles. In the end, it was Guhan who saw the magazine for the first time, who discovered the mystery within. But even if we know the mystery of returning is hidden in this magazine, it's still not easy. This magazine has dozens of pages and tens of thousands of words. God knows where the clue is hidden. Although the military governor found the mystery, Lu Qingmei was unwilling to give up. She simply used these questions to embarrass the military governor. And this was also the truth. The magazine published normal articles, and it was too easy to hide clues in the articles. With the ever-changing characteristics of Chinese characters, Lu Qingmei felt that she could comprehend hundreds of thousands of different clues from tens of thousands of words. If there was no hint, no matter how many clues she found, it would be useless. Pay attention to this sentence. Pay attention to that word. As Gahan spoke, he stepped on a chicken claw. The story here, China's population policy has been in turmoil for 50 years. I want to return to this place. Gahan stomped his claws twice. Do you understand? Understood. Lu Qingmei lowered her head and said obediently. She was as gentle as a little wife. Lu Qingmei once again felt a deep admiration for the military governor. At the same time, she also understood that wanting to compete with the military governor in terms of intelligence was simply a pipe dream. If he wanted to return to normal, he would have to rely on the wisdom of the military governor. In other words, the secret to turning back is actually in this article. The article that Lu Qingmei was referring to was naturally the article on China's population policy. And Gahan nodded. Then we must also turn to this page. Lu Qingmei's little chicken claws kicked the pages of the book. In the end, we still have to open this book. But with our current strength, we can't open this book. It's destined to be a waste of effort. Let me try. Guhan frowned and tried to open the magazine with his chicken claws. But the result was the same as Lu Qingmei's. The body of this chicken was too weak. Gahan couldn't even open a page of this magazine. Then what should we do now? Lu Qingmei spread her chicken wings and asked Gahan. And Gahan didn't answer. Instead, he kept pondering and thinking deeply. Lu Qingmei didn't dare to disturb Gahan. She could only quietly wait for Gahan to come up with a good idea. About 10 minutes later, Guhan, the little chick, suddenly started to dig the ground with all its might. What? You thought of a way? Lu Qingmei immediately asked with joy. No, I'm just hungry. An earthworm suddenly burrowed out from the soil that Guhan's little chicken claws had dug out. Guhan's eyes were sharp and his mouth was quick. He immediately used his sharp beak to grab the earthworm into his stomach and swallowed it in a few bites. He even let out a faint burp. So disgusting. This scene made Lu Qingmei want to vomit. The military governor suddenly ate an earthworm. This was something that Lu Qingmei couldn't accept. She only recovered after retching for a long time. But she didn't know if it was because she retched too hard. Lu Qingmei's stomach became particularly hungry after this. It was as if she had returned to the state when she woke up without eating the eggshell. Hungry? Gahan keenly noticed a change in Lu Qingmei. Then he looked at the soft soil around and said, there should be a lot of earthworms nearby. You can feel the vibration of the ground and you can dig them out. No, Lu Qingmei decisively refused. That thing is too disgusting. How can you eat it? As you wish. Lu Qingmei's hunger was Lu Qingmei's business. It had nothing to do with Gahan. Gahan continued to dig in the soil. From time to time, an earthworm would come out and be eaten directly. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen earthworms had died. Lu Qingmei didn't know if it was an illusion. She felt that after Gahan ate the earthworms, his whole body seemed to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye. She and Gahan were the same height as Gahan, but now Lu Qingmei felt that she seemed to be a head shorter than Gahan. This point was completely revealed after Gahan ate hundreds of earthworms. Gahan's body was not just a head bigger than Lu Qingmei's, but it was almost twice as big. At the same time, the feathers on his body were more plump, and his body was gradually approaching that of an adult chicken. This showed that this was not a simple increase in body size, but Gahan had grown up, and this growth speed was more than 100 times faster than a normal rooster. However, at this time, Lu Qingmei had no time to care about Gahan's growth speed. The intense hunger was constantly attacking Lu Qingmei's brain. Looking at Gahan constantly eating, Lu Qingmei's body constantly produced a strong appetite, urging Lu Qingmei to eat the delicious earthworms into her stomach. Lu Qingmei completely relied on human reason to suppress this kind of appetite. Otherwise, she could rely on her body's instinct to devour all those earthworms. Eat. Suddenly, Guhan, who had eaten and drank to his heart's content, threw an earthworm in front of Lu Qingmei. The body of an earthworm contains a large amount of protein and lipids. At the same time, there are hundreds of kinds of nutrients that the body needs. The nutritional value is extremely high. It is said that before the Great Destruction, there was a longevity village in Guangdong. The old people in this village had the habit of eating earthworms. Our ancestors had eaten earthworms long ago, not to mention that you are now a chicken. Chickens eat earthworms. When Los Angeles was besieged 200 years ago, many people in Los Angeles survived by eating earthworms. That's all I have to say. Whether you eat it or not is up to you. After saying that, Gahan left Lu Qingmei. Lu Qingmei hesitated for a long time and finally made up her mind. She closed her eyes and ate the earthworm into her stomach. When the earthworm entered her mouth, Lu Qingmei felt as if she had eaten a peerless delicacy. The sweet fragrance with the smell of the earth made Lu Qingmei unable to control herself for a long time. It was really delicious. As the saying goes, if there is one, there will be two, and if there is two, there will be three. After eating an earthworm, it was not difficult to eat more earthworms. Lu Qingmei simply let go of her stomach and learned from the military governor to dig out earthworms from the soil and ate them one by one. Lu Qingmei felt that her stomach was like a bottomless pit. She ate one earthworm after another, but she never felt full. She was still so hungry. After eating hundreds of earthworms like Gahan, the hunger disappeared. Lu Qingmei's body also more than doubled like Gahan's, as if she had turned from a baby to a child of 11 or 12 years old. When Lu Qingmei was eating, Gahan, who had already eaten and drunk to his heart's content, began to study the Bosom Friend Story Club again. Because his body had more than doubled, Gahan felt that with his current strength, he might be able to open this Bosom Friend Story Club. But it was a pity that this book was so sticky that Gahan still couldn't separate the pages. At this time, Gahan suddenly heard a rustling sound. These sounds were very low, so low that ordinary people couldn't hear such sounds at all. But Gahan was not a human now. He was a chicken, and this sound was especially clear in the chicken's ears. Soon, Gahan could distinguish that this was the sound of the grass being pressed and broken by something. Obviously, in the lush grass that he couldn't see clearly, something was secretly approaching him. Intuition told Gahan that this thing was probably not friendly. Lu Qingmei, run. Suddenly, Gahan said to Lu Qingmei, who was in the distance. Lu Qingmei was stunned and instinctively twisted to the side, and then a black shadow flew past Lu Qingmei's previous position. It's a golden silk python, Lu Qingmei exclaimed. This black shadow that appeared was none other than the golden silk python that she had seen in the Serpentine Palace. It was just that compared to the huge golden silk python of the Serpentine Palace, the golden silk python at this time was more like their child. Its body was only 1/5 the size of the Serpentine Palace. Of course, such a golden silk python was no threat to Guhan and Lu Qingmei, but to the two chicks, it was no less than a jackal or a ferocious beast. It could almost sentence the two chicks to death. Chapter 986. The current situation was extremely dangerous for Guhan and Lu Qingmei. Not only did Guhan not have the sword essence, but he also didn't have the body of a normal human. If Guhan still had his own body, even if this body didn't have the sword essence and was as small as a chick, Guhan could still easily kill this golden silk python. But now that Guhan had the body of a chick, how could he be a match for a golden silk python? Therefore, After calling Lu Qingmei away, Gahan became the prey of the golden silk python. He was chased by the golden silk python and fled frantically. The speed of the golden silk python was much faster than the chick. It was reasonable to say that it would be difficult for the chick to escape the golden silk python's bloody mouth. However, inside this chick was the soul of a battle-hardened human. This human constantly used various small movements, turns, and lane changes to repeatedly escape from the golden silk python's mouth. For a moment, a snake and a chicken played out a chase in this small area like a Hollywood blockbuster. In the process of a chase, the golden silk python just happened to rush over the bosom friend story club. This was because the golden silk python's scales were naturally designed with barbs to allow it to slide quickly on the ground and use its scales to cause more damage to its prey. This kind of scale directly acted on bosom friend story club and formed another kind of additional effect. The originally tightly glued pages were directly opened with the help of the scale. Such a sudden change surprised Gahan. Gahan immediately glanced at the magazine and found that the magazine had turned to the page with the words, "Desire is a scam. We are all slaves of desire." There was also a beautiful sex illustration on this page, but the key part was covered by a silk scarf. At the same time, a very risky idea emerged in his mind. That was to lure the golden silk python to repeatedly crawl over the bosom friend story club and turn more pages until it reached the page, the story here. China's population policy has been turbulent for 50 years. Therefore, the running Gahan deliberately led the golden silk python to crawl over the bosom friend story club. Soon, the pages of the book kept turning. Unfortunately, the golden silk python's willpower was not strong enough. After failing to catch Gahan, the little chick, several times, it actually gave up on the prey that was about to enter its mouth and once again wandered into the depths of the grass, actually ignoring the little chick, Gahan. Just a little more. The frozen Lu Qingmei walked to the side of the open bosom friend story club and found that the pages of the book had already been flipped to more than 40 pages. There were only a few pages left from the last few pages. The story here, China's population policy, was like a storm for 50 years. Gahan tried to use his chicken claws to turn the last few pages, but he didn't expect it to be the same. Germany's orthopedics department. Why do China's youths go to Germany for treatment? How big is the medical gap between China and Germany? At this time, the bosom friend story club had turned to this page. Lu Qingmei, who had nothing to do, quickly focused on reading it. It turned out that this story was about a Chinese exchange student before the apocalypse. Through his own hard work, he became a leading doctor in Germany's orthopedics department. However, ever since this Chinese exchange student became a leading doctor in Germany's orthopedics department, he received a steady stream of youths from China. Almost every week, there would be 2 or 3 youths coming to his hospital to look at bones. This made the Chinese exchange student very confused. Was there a need to specially come all the way to Germany to look at such a small illness in the orthopedics department? There must be some unknown secret behind it. Therefore, after 5 years of dedicated research, the exchange student finally realized that it was because Germany's technology was the best in the world. At the same time, the orthopedics department was very strict in treatment, so it attracted so many Chinese youths to Germany's orthopedics department. The exchange student also gave a simple example. He said that in the orthopedics department of China's hospital, they would just put a steel nail in the bone and directly suture it. They didn't consider what would happen if the nail was damaged in the future. German doctors were different. German doctors would leave an extra steel nail in the patient's stomach and then wrap it with oiled paper. That way, if the nail was damaged in the future, they could take it out from the stomach and replace it with a new one. He couldn't let his 5 years of research go to waste. Therefore, the exchange student wrote his research into a thesis and published it. He even won many awards from medical magazines and became famous in Germany. Later, he married the younger sister of a Chinese youth who came to Germany to see a doctor. In less than 3 months, they got married and became a father in 9 months. Since then, they lived happily ever after. It was such a simple story, but Lu Qingmei read it with great interest. It wasn't until Gahan forcefully pecked her head a few times that she broke away from a story. "Why are you pecking me?" Lu Qingmei said with dissatisfaction. "I have an important task for you. Whether we can return to our original appearance depends on you." The military governor's words made Lu Qingmei a little excited. It had always been the military governor who helped her through many difficulties. This made Lu Qingmei feel very apologetic. At the same time, she was very eager to use her strength to help the military governor and prove that she wasn't a useless person. Therefore, Lu Qingmei didn't even ask what the question was and directly agreed to it very readily. It wasn't until Lu Qingmei came to the location of a big hole in the ground that she realized that she seemed to have been fooled by the military governor. "What is this place?" Lu Qingmei asked with a slight tremble. "I think this should be the nest of the golden silk python," Gahan said indifferently. "It took me a lot of effort just now to find its nest. Snakes are afraid that their eggs will be stolen, so their nests are often hidden in very secret places. It takes a lot of effort to find them. Why did you come to the nest of the golden silk python? Do you want to deliver meat to its doorstep?" Lu Qingmei instinctively felt that the military governor was brewing a very bad idea for her. "That's right, it's delivering meat to its doorstep." Unexpectedly, Gahan nodded and admitted it neatly. "That snake has been exercising with me for so long. It must be very hungry now. As long as you keep standing at the entrance of the hole, it will soon be able to smell the meat and run out of the hole. You just need to lead the snake to the Bosom Friend Story Club and find a way to make it turn a few more pages. Your task will be completed." It turned out that Gahan wanted to use Lu Qingmei as bait to lure the golden silk python that had just run away to turn the pages of the book. "Why me?" Lu Qingmei was so scared that her little heart was pounding. "I don't have your ability. If I'm not careful, the golden silk python will eat me directly. This is too dangerous. I won't do it." "Do you think I want you to be the bait?" Gahan said disdainfully. "With your skills, I'm also worried that you'll be eaten by the golden silk python before you can run back to the magazine. But I have no other choice. The golden silk python is already familiar with my smell and knows that it can't outrun me. I just stood at the entrance of the hole for a few minutes, and the golden silk python still hasn't come out. Obviously, it has lost interest in me, so it has no choice but to use you as bait." Speaking of this, Gahan paused and said in an even more contemptuous tone, "I say, Miss Lu Qingmei, you can't be that timid, right? Who are you calling timid? Let me tell you, this kind of simple provocation has no effect on me. I will not be fooled by you." Lu Qingmei stamped her little chicken claws. "You just wait at the side. Watch how I lure that beast out." Sure enough, as Gahan had guessed, when Gahan hid in the grass and left Lu Qingmei alone near the entrance of the hole, the golden silk python could not resist the temptation of food and came out of its nest. Lu Qingmei, who had been paying attention to the movements in the nest, ran away without saying a word. When the golden silk python saw this situation and saw that the chicken was about to escape from its mouth, it couldn't care less about the strangeness inside and immediately chased after her at full speed. Lu Qingmei's running speed was far slower than Gahan's, and her flexibility and positioning were also not as good as Gahan's. So before she could reach the location of the Bosom Friend Story Club, the golden silk python had almost caught up with her and was about to swallow her. A stone suddenly flew out from a nearby bush and landed right under the golden silk python's body. The sudden small stone was like a banana peel, causing the golden silk python's body to stagnate. It could not help but spin in a circle, and its speed involuntarily slowed down. Lu Qingmei also took this opportunity to put some distance between herself and the golden silk python. The golden silk python immediately chased after Lu Qingmei, but every time it was about to eat Lu Qingmei, there would always be a stone flying out to block its way. Unknowingly, the golden silk python and Lu Qingmei had returned to the location of the Bosom Friend Story Club. Under Lu Qingmei's seduction, it also successfully flipped a few pages of the Bosom Friend Story Club. When Gahan, who was secretly observing from the side, saw that the Bosom Friend Story Club had been flipped to the page he needed, he immediately jumped out from the grass and took over Lu Qingmei's job as bait. When the golden silk python saw Gahan appear, its anger immediately dissipated. It tried to catch Gahan a few more times, but it still could not catch him. The golden silk python could only helplessly leave this sad place to see if it could find food that was not so slippery in other places. "I'm so tired." Seeing the golden silk python leave, Lu Qingmei panted and returned to Gahan's side. Lu Qingmei was shocked by the crazy run just now, and she began to miss the wonderful taste of earthworms. She could not help but push Gahan and asked, "Hey, let's go eat some more earthworms." Unfortunately, Gahan did not respond to Lu Qingmei's suggestion, because at this time, Gahan was completely immersed in the story here, China's population policy, turbulent 50 years. Chapter 987. This article talked about a history that Gahan had never heard of. It said that China had a very unstable population policy before the apocalypse. It said that when China was founded, every couple was encouraged to have more than 5 children. The more children they had, the more they would be given the title of a heroic mother. However, in the 70s, this slogan changed to 2 children for every couple. In the 80s, it changed to something like have fewer and better children, have a happy life. Vasectomy for 1 person, glory for the whole family. Vasectomy for 1 person, vasectomy for the whole village. If you don't pay the fine for having more children, the police station will find out. Vasectomy for those who should be, arrest them on sight. Witness pregnancy, birth certificate. 10 more graves, then 1 more person. Have fewer children, plant more trees. Have fewer children, raise more pigs. All in all, the policy of this era encouraged people to have only 1 child, which was the so-called one-child policy. However, from 2015 onwards, China's population policy started to encourage people to have 2 children. China's population policy had changed 3 times in 60 years. This article quoted from many sources, trying its best to prove the failure of China's population policy. At the same time, it quoted the population policy of you during the Warring States period. In the end, the author of this article tried to prove to everyone that the more people a country had, the stronger the country would be. After reading the article, Guhan's first reaction was that this article had filled in a huge gap in the study of human society before the Great Destruction. It should be known that in the academic world, various experts have been arguing about the population policy of Huaxia before the Great Destruction. Some experts said that Huaxia had always strictly implemented the one-child birth control policy, while others said that Huaxia had always implemented the birth control policy of having more people. The debate between the 2 parties was fierce. At the same time, because there was no concrete evidence, this issue had been debated by experts for hundreds of years. Now, this article systematically explained the changes in China's population policy before the apocalypse. It could end this boring debate that had lasted for hundreds of years. If Gahan published this article in an academic journal, he would probably gain a great reputation. However, Gahan quickly threw this thought aside. This was not the main point. The main point was what kind of information was hidden in this article. What should he do to return to his own body? Guhan read the article over and over again, but he still couldn't figure out what to make of it. Seeing that the sky was gradually darkening and the day was about to pass, Guhan couldn't help but feel a little anxious. He did not know what the situation was like outside the dungeon. Had the Wu people started to attack the Zhou Tian Star Battle Formation? What kind of state was the Shi Sing garrison in? However, Gahan had already warned Juzi Sword, who had not entered the game, to forcibly remove the game helmet from his body if there were any changes outside, or if he had not come out for more than 30 days in the game. As for whether this would cause any serious sequelae to Gahan, Gahan really did not care so much. Now that Gahan had been in this dungeon for 2 days, since Juzi Sword did not choose to forcibly take away his game helmet, then Gahan could only guess with the best attitude that the battle outside should still be under control, so Juzi Sword did not choose to forcibly wake him up. However, this dungeon really couldn't afford to waste any more time. Guhan made up his mind to carefully read the article again. If he still couldn't find any clues, then he would immediately commit suicide and risk his life to leave this dungeon. Although the last reading was very careful, and Gohan also constantly pondered the entire text, he still did not find any clues. Gohan sighed. When he was about to run to the edge of the cliff and jump to his death, some black and constantly twisting things were suddenly thrown in front of Gohan. "Here you go. Count it as my treat." These constantly twisting things were some living earthworms, and on the other side, Lu Qingmei said with a forthright face, "These earthworms are the fattest and most delicious ones I picked out. Don't be polite with me. Today it's my treat." Gohan did not want to say anything more. When he was about to use his chicken claws to push away these earthworms, he suddenly found that the position of one of the earthworms just fell on the center line of the magazine, and in the center line of the magazine, there's always a long bunch of words with black square boxes. Gohan knew that this was the centerline advertisement that was often seen in magazines, and it was also the cheapest advertisement in the magazine. It was more than several times cheaper than the average advertising space. Because this advertising space was too remote, the average reader did not have the time to pay attention to the advertising space in this position. Just like Gohan before, he completely ignored the content of this advertisement. But now that he was reminded by this earthworm, Gohan keenly discovered that this centerline advertisement was not ordinary. He saw that this centerline advertisement was written as follows: Chicken kelp, the latest scientific research results from San Diego in the United States. With just a little chicken kelp, you can produce 18,000 eggs. Chicken kelp can activate the fertility deep in the hen's body, and the number of eggs produced will at least double or more than 10 times, so that you can earn a lot of money every day, and one chicken can give birth to 10 chickens. It seems that the key to the task is in this chicken kelp. Gohan's chicken claws heavily stepped on this advertisement, and then said that he had just swallowed all the earthworms that Lu Qingmei had just treated him to. Although Gohan wanted to immediately start looking for clues about the chicken kelp, the problem was that the sky was already dark at this time, and the chicken was an animal with extremely poor night vision. If it were not for the very bright moonlight, perhaps Gohan would not even be able to find the way back to the chicken house. Although he was very unwilling, Gohan could only bring Lu Qingmei back to the chicken coop, and then fell asleep in a state of worry. The next day, when the sky was still dark and the sky was still gray, Gohan suddenly heard a loud and clear cry of a rooster. It was high-pitched and exciting, like a burst of charging horn, and people could not help but wake up from sleep. This kind of rooster crow lasted for a few minutes, and when Gohan was completely awakened by this crow, he saw Lu Qingmei looking at him with horror in her eyes, stammering and asking, "What's wrong with me? Why did I wake up involuntarily just now? Why can't I stop crowing? I don't want to do this." Gohan carefully looked at Lu Qingmei. At this time, Lu Qingmei was several times bigger than before she went to sleep. She had a beautiful red with yellow feathers, especially the tail feathers that could emit a kind of glossy light, and there was also a blood-red comb on her head. Her whole person looked very powerful. "Congratulations," Gohan said faintly. "You are now a mature, big rooster." After a period of chaos, although there were no dogs around, Gohan and Lu Qingmei finally figured out the general situation. In fact, Gohan discovered yesterday that the growth and development of the two chicks, himself and Lu Qingmei, were much faster than normal chicks. In one night, Lu Qingmei and Gohan had grown from 11 or 12 years old young chickens to 25 years old adult chickens. All aspects of their bodies had matured, and their pair of chicken claws had become powerful. Gohan felt that even if he encountered the golden silk python again, he would no longer be able to only escape without the ability to resist. However, the gender of Gohan and Lu Qingmei played a big joke on the two of them. Lu Qingmei became a cocky big rooster, and Gohan naturally became a fat old hen. The two people's genders were completely reversed. Fortunately, Gohan had the experience of becoming a Guxian Yuan, so he could barely bear such a change. Lu Qingmei's situation was much worse, and it took a lot of effort to reluctantly accept her own situation. Next, Gohan and Lu Qingmei began to use the chicken house as the center around the entire surrounding area to find any clues related to the chicken-kila. When it was almost noon, Gohan and Lu Qingmei found a golden cardboard box under the roots of an old tree. The cardboard box was clearly printed with the trademark chicken-kila. Obviously, this was the cardboard box that contained the chicken-kila. But unfortunately, there was no finished chicken-kila in the cardboard box. This was just an empty cardboard box. However, Gohan did not feel discouraged because he knew that this cardboard box was actually the biggest clue. Looking around this cardboard box, he would definitely find other clues. Sure enough, when Gohan flapped his chicken wings and barely flew to the trunk of the old tree, he found a big hole in the trunk of the old tree. When he looked into the big hole, he found that the old tree was completely hollow. At the bottom of this hollow trunk, there was a small golden plastic bottle there. This small plastic bottle clearly had a chicken-kila label on it. If he could, Gohan couldn't wait to jump into the trunk and eat all the chicken-kila in the plastic bottle. But Gohan couldn't do this at all, because at the bottom of the trunk, there was not only the precious chicken-kila, but there were at least 50 golden silk pythons entrenched in the trunk. They firmly guarded the plastic bottle and refused to move a step. It seems that this is the ultimate test of this palace. Gohan jumped back to the ground from the branch and said to Lu Qingmei, who had no idea what happened, "I think if we can defeat more than 50 golden silk pythons, we can become human again." Chapter 988. The difficulty of trying to take a plastic bottle out of a tree hole with more than 50 golden silk pythons in the body of a hen could be imagined. Even Gohan was at his wit's end when faced with such a situation. Gohan might have some confidence in dealing with 1 or 2 golden silk pythons, but dealing with more than 50 golden silk pythons at the same time was no different from suicide. Fortunately, the golden silk pythons themselves were not poisonous, so Gohan did not have to worry about being poisoned to death. He only had to worry about being swallowed alive by so many golden silk pythons. In the next few hours, Gohan experimented with many methods that seemed to be feasible. The first method Gohan thought of was the bait tactic he used before. He found a vine and tied it to the trunk of the tree. Then, he bit the vine with his beak and carefully sneaked into the tree hole, trying to use himself as bait to lure the golden silk pythons out of the tree hole. This should have been a very effective method because no python could resist the temptation of a chicken. In Gohan's opinion, the golden silk pythons would be eager to get out of the tree hole. Unfortunately, Gohan was wrong. The golden silk pythons seemed to have lost their sense of sight and smell. They ignored Gohan. Even when Gohan was less than 10 centimeters away from them, the golden silk pythons did not respond. Helpless, Gohan could only struggle to climb out of the tree hole with his wings and think of another way. Later, Gohan saw that the bark of the tree was very thin, so he tried to open a hole at the root of the tree and forced the golden silk pythons to crawl out through the tree hole with the help of sunlight. It was just that when Gohan spent a lot of effort and his mouth almost cracked, he finally managed to peck a hole. But it was still useless. The golden silk pythons remained unmoved. In the end, Gohan even found a magnifying glass that he had lost on the ground. He used it to light a piece of plastic paper and threw it into the tree hole. He tried to use the black smoke and smell produced by the burning plastic paper to lure the golden silk pythons out. As everyone could probably guess, the golden silk pythons did not react at all. At this time, Gohan finally understood that these golden silk pythons were not normal golden silk pythons at all. They were golden silk pythons that had been tampered with by the fleeting year calendar. These golden silk pythons would probably never leave the tree hole for the rest of their lives, guarding the bottle of chicken-kila. No matter how much he thought about it, it would be useless. There is only one way to get the bottle of chicken-kila, and that was to go down and get it himself. But now, the problem was back to the beginning. Gohan had no way to deal with so many gold silk pythons. Before he found a way to deal with these gold silk pythons, he would die if he rashly went down. It doesn't make sense. There's no way Kenzu would set up such a checkpoint without a solution. While Gohan was thinking hard on one side, Lu Qingmei was trying very hard to catch the earthworms on the other side. Gohan had been tossing and turning in the tree hole for a few hours. During these hours, the two chickens had consumed a lot of energy, and Gahan had no other time to catch food. Only Lu Qingmei took up the responsibility of constantly digging the soil and catching a large number of earthworms as food for Gahan and herself. This was the only thing Lu Qingmei could do. Otherwise, she really did not know where she could help take care of Gahan. However, as the saying goes, a flower planted intentionally does not bloom, but a willow planted unintentionally grows shade. Lu Qingmei, who was focused on catching earthworms, had unknowingly turned over all the land around a tree. When she turned over a relatively flat piece of land, she suddenly felt something hard under the ground. Lu Qingmei used her claws to dig away the floating soil on this thing, and found that it was a Xiaomi Mi Mix phone under the picture. This is a phone from the pre-apocalypse era. It really looks very cool. In addition to the frame, the whole front of this phone was the screen. It was a very popular full-screen phone before the apocalypse. I don't know if it can still be turned on. Lu Qingmei tried to press the power button for a long time with her chicken claws. She was surprised to find that the phone still had power and could still be turned on, although there was only 5% power left after it was turned on. But it was a pity that this phone was set to unlock 9 squares. It cannot be unlocked without knowing the strokes. Of course, Lu Qingmei wasn't willing to stop at this step. So after thinking for a short while, she suddenly drew a staircase symbol on the unlock grid, and the phone was unlocked cleanly and neatly. The desktop of this phone was quite clean and neat. There were only 2 icons on the entire desktop. One was the icon of a video, and the other was the icon of a mobile game called Goddess Divine Emperor Designated. Of course, there were 4 software icons at the bottom of the desktop for fixed phone, text message, camera, and browser. Lu Qingmei first clicked on a browser icon curiously, but found that there was no web page that could be opened. Of course, this was normal because there was no such thing as a 4G network in this era. And this phone's camera seemed to be damaged, so the camera did not have any effect. She clicked on the text message and found that all the text messages in this phone were from official companies like 10086, Industrial and Commercial Bank, Alipay, and so on. Lu Qingmei couldn't help but feel sad. The owner of this phone was really too pitiful in his previous life. He didn't even have a friend who could text him normally. Lu Qingmei kept reading until the last position before she found that it was not a text message from an official company, but a text message from a friend marked as Fatty. It said, "Lung Qingxiu, I heard from others that you were killed by a car. This can't be true, right? You're still alive, right? You haven't paid me back the 518 you owe me yet." This text message stunned Lu Qingmei at first, but she immediately reacted. This should be a text message from the phone owner's friend when the apocalypse happened. At the beginning of the apocalypse, only a small part of the world had Yuan Ko, which caused a lot of chaos. Now it seemed that this Lung Qingxiu should have died at the hands of Yuan Ko at the beginning of the apocalypse. After that, this friend called Fatty heard the news and hurriedly sent a message to ask Lung Qingxiu. After all, when everyone suddenly heard the news of a friend being killed by a car, their first reaction would naturally be to send a message to this friend to confirm that they hadn't received any scam messages. However, since this person called Lung Qingxiu was killed by a car, why would his phone be left in Mount Emotion? There weren't any mountain paths nearby, so it was very unscientific to leave it here. If it was Guhan who saw this message, he would definitely think more about it. However, this message was seen by Lu Qingmei, so it didn't have any effect on him and was directly ignored by Lu Qingmei. The only thing left in the entire phone that wasn't checked was a software called Video. When Lu Qingmei opened the video, she was shocked to find that there was only one video file in the entire video folder. Lu Qingmei opened the video file without hesitation and found that it was actually a video of a group dance performance on a very gorgeous stage. 2017 Spring Festival Gala. Lu Qingmei noticed that there was a line of watermarks in the upper right corner of the video, and this sentence was printed. Lu Qingmei then remembered that it was said that before the apocalypse, China had the custom of holding the Spring Festival Gala during the Spring Festival, and every family was used to watching the Spring Festival Gala in front of the TV. However, with the arrival of the apocalypse, humans had almost forgotten about the Spring Festival Gala. Who would have thought that this phone still had a video of the 2017 Spring Festival Gala? This video was a group dance performance video. It was roughly a group of cute little Lolas wearing chicken costumes and doing some cute dance moves on the stage. This was a dance for children to watch. In the eyes of adults, this kind of dance was inevitably too childish. When the group dance ended, the video came to an abrupt end. It's really strange. The owner of this phone also looks like an adult. Why would he deliberately save a child's dance in the phone? Lu Qingmei thought inexplicably. When she was about to exit the video program and was about to look for other interesting things, Lu Qingmei suddenly froze. Wait, we're now chickens, and the dance in the phone is only a chicken dance. This phone just happened to appear here. Could it be that there is some connection between them? This was probably one of the rare times in Lu Qingmei's life that her IQ exploded. She suddenly noticed something special about this video. So she walked to the side of Gahan, who was thinking hard, and told Gahan about the phone. Gahan suddenly rushed over like a turkey, opened the video again, and watched the entire video from the beginning again. How is it? Are there any clues in it? Lu Qingmei asked with some nervousness and some anticipation. I don't know, said Gahan after a moment of hesitation. I've carefully watched all the details, but I didn't find anything that could be considered as a clue. But it's really strange for such a phone and such a video to appear in this place. Do you think a phone that has experienced more than 60 years of wind, frost, rain, and snow will not be damaged, and the phone's battery will still be charged? That's impossible. Even if the phone is turned off, the battery of the phone will be completely depleted in a year or two. It's impossible for it to be preserved for more than 60 years. Lu Qingmei shook her head. That's right. This phone did not appear here by chance. It was intentionally left here by fleeting Jiandi, said Gahan. Chapter 989. When you just picked up this phone, how much battery did this phone have? Gahan suddenly asked Lu Qingmei such a question. 5%. I'm sure. Lu Qingmei recalled for a while and said, now there is still 3% left. Both of us have watched the video twice in total, so the remaining battery can support us to watch it 3 times. This means that within 3 times, I must discover the mystery in this video, otherwise everything will be in vain. Speaking of this, Gahan took a deep breath, then clicked on the video again, and once again watched it carefully from beginning to end. Sure enough, as Gahan guessed, after the video ended, the remaining battery of the phone immediately jumped to 2%. How is it? Did you see anything? After watching the video for the second time, Gahan did not say a word. He closed his small eyes and kept replaying the video he just watched in his mind. After waiting for a full hour, Lu Qingmei could not help but ask after waiting impatiently. I saw something, but I can't guarantee it. A light flashed in Gahan's eyes, and then his body suddenly began to move, making some very awkward and strange movements. Lu Qingmei seemed to see a fool, but she immediately realized that the movements made by the military governor were exactly the movements performed by the chicks in the video. Gahan spent another hour to repeat this set of movements more than 20 times, and then immediately clicked on the video again to watch it again. In this way, the phone only had 1% battery left, and he could only watch the video for the last time. Lu Qingmei originally thought that after watching the video, Gahan would keep thinking like before and then learn to dance like the other person. But unexpectedly, Gahan showed a puzzled expression and kept whispering to himself, "That's not right. Did I see it wrong? Could it be that I comprehended something wrong?" Gahan struggled for a while before he suddenly stomped the ground with his little chicken paw. After a few minutes, he replayed the video for the 5th time. When the final performance was over, the phone immediately shut down. At the same time, thick smoke suddenly came out of the back of the phone, followed by a burning smell. It seemed that the phone's battery had spontaneously combusted. Enough! This phone can't be used anymore. At this time, Lu Qingmei could also see that this phone didn't spontaneously combust. Instead, it had spontaneously combusted due to the scheming of an existence in the depths of skyscraping mountain. This was to prevent Gahan and Lu Qingmei from watching the video for the 6th time. Military governor, this time we really don't have a chance. Anyway, I didn't see any clues in this video. Now we're all depending on you. Did you see any clues? Lu Qingmei couldn't help but ask again. There are no clues here. We've been thinking about the wrong thing all along. Guhan said to Lu Qingmei with a bitter smile. There are no clues here. Lu Qingmei was shocked, and then she became anxious. Then why did you say that there are clues here? Why are you jumping around like those little chicks? Are you having an epileptic fit? Are you wasting our time? Why are you so anxious? Although there are no clues here, there are hidden tools that can help me take out the chicken from the tree hole. Guhan's face showed a smile of wisdom. Tools? What tools? Unknowingly, Lu Qingmei played the role of a supporting character. A secret manual. Guhan glanced at the phone one last time and added, a martial arts secret manual. A martial arts secret manual specially for chickens to practice. For the rest of the day, Lu Qingmei was dumbfounded as she watched Guhan practice the martial arts secret manual that he had comprehended from the video in the chicken coop. Guhan even gave this secret manual a vivid name, Heavenly Chicken Fight. It was said that the reason for this name was because there were a total of 8 moves in the Heavenly Chicken Fight, which could use the chicken's body to deal with different attacks. However, this name always had an indescribable piercing feeling in Lu Qingmei's ears, as if there was something wrong with it, but she couldn't tell what it was. However, Lu Qingmei had to admit that Guhan was indeed very talented in martial arts. This Heavenly Rooster Fight, which Lu Qingmei didn't understand at all. Guhan only watched the video a few times and spent only one day to practice it to the point that it was as good as the wind and water. This Heavenly Chicken Fight made full use of the characteristics of the chicken, turning the chicken's beak, claws, wings, and even the chicken's buttocks into a weapon. Vaguely, there was an invincible demeanor. Lu Qingmei even felt that if she didn't have the sword lady in her hands, she might not be a match for Gahan, the hen. A day later, Lu Qingmei and Guhan came under the old tree again. Lu Qingmei watched Gahan jump out of the tree hole without hesitation, and then heard a burst of dull sounds coming from the old tree, and occasionally heard the sharp cry of a chicken. This sound lasted for about 20 minutes, and all the movements finally calmed down. Finally, Gahan climbed out of the small hole he had pecked out, and finally, a plastic bottle stained with blood was in his mouth. Now, Gahan looked extremely miserable. About 2/3 of his feathers had fallen off, revealing the white and tender chicken under the feathers and the goosebumps all over his body. The exposed skin was almost full of wounds, and a lot of chicken had been directly bitten off. Only one claw of Gahan was left, and the other was nowhere to be seen. Maybe it had been eaten by the golden silk pythons as a drumstick. After eating this chicken feces, we can change back. Guhan struggled to open the cap of the plastic bottle. Looking at the plastic bottle soaked in chicken blood, Lu Qingmei was very touched. The military governor almost risked his life to get this jinkle back. She owed the military governor too much, and she didn't know how to repay the man in front of her. Lu Qingmei could only secretly promise in her heart that she would find a way to repay the military governor's kindness today, even if she had to sacrifice her life in this life. What are you waiting for? Eat it. When Lu Qingmei secretly promised, Gahan directly opened the plastic bottle with his mouth and found that there were only 2 white pills in the bottle. Gahan ate one directly, and then motioned Lu Qingmei to eat the remaining one. Okay. Lu Qingmei nodded, and then slowly dropped the remaining pill into her mouth with a very cherished attitude. She crushed it into powder little by little, and finally swallowed it into her abdomen. But what made Gahan and Lu Qingmei feel strange was that the 2 chicken feces did not have any effect after eating it. Gahan was still an old hen, and Lu Qingmei was still a big rooster. Could it be that my speculation is wrong? These chicken feces are not the key to my return? Just as Gahan was thinking about this, suddenly Gahan felt a burst of weakness in his body, as if his bones were pulled out by someone, and he could only fall to the ground softly. On the other side, Lu Qingmei was different. Her eyes suddenly became blood red, and her coxcomb seemed to be congested with blood, standing upright and stretching up, and finally, it was more than 4 times bigger than usual. And the feathers on her body had all changed from the previous red and yellow color to blood red, and her body itself swelled up as if she was injected with chicken blood. Wait, this metaphor seems a bit wrong. It seems that Lu Qingmei is now a big rooster. Why does she need to be injected with chicken blood? Well, these things are no longer important. The important thing is that at this time, Lu Qingmei's eyes have been staring at the weak body of Gahan. Such a lustful look made Gahan feel like he was looking at a man who had been locked in prison for 30 or 40 years. For such a man, let alone a woman, even a sow would be like a Diaochan. The next situation was probably an unforgettable shadow for Guhan in this life. Lu Qingmei, who had completely lost her mind, directly stepped on Guhan's back with her 2 chicken claws, and then her beak bit the feathers on the back of Guhan's neck, and something directly entered Guhan's body. After all, now Gahan is a hen, and Lu Qingmei is a rooster. This posture is not wrong. Guhan was willing to recall how long he was tossed around by this big rooster, Lu Qingmei. When everything calmed down, Lu Qingmei also woke up from that crazy desire. When she figured out what she had done, she could only explain very helplessly, "This is not her fault. This is all the fault of those chicken feces." At this time, Lu Qingmei returned to normal, but Gahan still did not have the strength to move. At the same time, Gahan felt a strong sense of excretion in his body, and then an egg was suddenly born under Gahan's buttocks. What happened next became out of control. Gahan completely broke the scientific common sense and laid 100 eggs in one breath. In the process of laying eggs, Gahan, who felt a strong sense of hunger, could only let Lu Qingmei start to catch a large number of earthworms to feed him, so that his body would not starve to death in the process of laying eggs. When all 100 eggs were laid, Guhan's disaster was declared over, and he regained control of his body. Gahan did not want to incubate these eggs at all, but these eggs were very simple. Without Gahan incubating them, they directly came out of the eggs and then followed behind Gahan. Naturally, Gahan became the mother of 100 chicks, and these chicks were all born by Gahan. Then these chicks grew at the same speed as Gahan and Lu Qingmei. In just a day, they entered the mating period and began to recklessly mate like their parents. It seemed that there was no such thing as a German orthopedic in the chicken world. Then the entire Mount Emotion began to occupy the entire Mount Emotion at a speed visible to the naked eye. On the 10th day after Gahan and Lu Qingmei became chickens, the entire Mount Emotion had become the territory of Gahan and Lu Qingmei's chickens. These chickens occupied every corner of Mount Emotion and became the overlord of Mount Emotion. But this was also the beginning of the tragedy. There was only so much land, but the number of chickens continued to increase, so internal strife was inevitable. These millions of chickens started a bloody war for the territory of Mount Emotion. Millions of corpses floated, and blood flowed like rivers. At least 3/4 of Gahan and Lu Qingmei's descendants died in these battles. In the end, these chickens were divided into 7 different forces and formed 7 countries. While fighting every day, they did not forget to form alliances and used all kinds of tricks. It was just like a copy of the spring and autumn warring states period. Gahan watched all of this very indifferently, as if the blood of his descendants had nothing to do with him, the ancestor. But Lu Qingmei could not stand it. She seemed to really treat these chickens as her own descendants, and then constantly tried to mediate the war, using her status as an ancestor to make these descendants reconcile. But all of this was sudden, and in the end, those descendants did not even recognize her as an ancestor. If not for Gahan, Lu Qingmei would have died under the siege of her descendants. In the end, the 7 chicken countries were unified by the smartest country, and the entire Mount Emotion returned to peace. However, compared to the tens of millions of chickens at its peak, the remaining chickens in the entire Mount Emotion were less than 1 million. It was also at this moment that the 7 countries were unified that Gahan and Lu Qingmei suddenly felt the world spin, and their consciousness became blurry. When they recovered again, they had already returned to their own bodies, and those chicken countries no longer existed. There was only a palace with the plaque Chicken Palace quietly standing in front of them. What a terrible name! Gahan could not help but think back to Lu Qingmei's guess about the name of this palace. Strange, why has it only been an hour? We clearly spent more than 10 days together. Lu Qingmei looked at the phone in her hand in confusion. It clearly showed the current time. Indeed, only an hour had passed. Chapter 990. That's normal. Gahan was not surprised by the fact that only an hour had passed. I remember that fleeting Jindi's sword mistress has the ability to cast illusions, right? Perhaps we didn't enter the body of a chick, but merely wandered around in an illusion. Oh, if it was an illusion, then why were the 2 eggs broken? The chicken's side is gone. Lu Qingmei pointed at the 2 eggs in front of her. The shells of the eggs were still intact, but there was a large hole in the shell. It was obvious that something had crawled out from the shell. Maybe when we were in the illusion, someone came over and replaced these 2 eggs. Guhan said casually. What kind of explanation is that? Lu Qingmei's face was filled with disbelief. Why would fleeting Jindi do something so senseless? Why would he change the eggs just to trick us? Why would fleeting Jindi do something like that? I can't be bothered to talk to you. Guhan waved his hand. But don't forget, when we were just born, we ate the eggshell directly into our stomach. If we really became chicks, then these 2 eggshells shouldn't exist here. Lu Qingmei was speechless. The eggshell had indeed been eaten by Lu Qingmei. If everything that had happened was real, then the eggshell should not have existed. In fact, there were many details that prove that everything that had happened was just an illusion. For example, Guhan and Lu Qingmei's ridiculous growth rate, as well as the Chicken Kingdom's 7 heroes, which were made up of millions of chickens. Guhan and Lu Qingmei took the opportunity to enter the Chicken Kingdom Palace, which had appeared out of nowhere. They discovered that the palace was rather simple. There was nothing inside. There was only a stone tablet near the entrance of the palace. There was only a simple sentence on it. Those who can see this palace have passed the test. It was to tell Gahan that he had passed the test. But military governor, why did fleeting Jindi arrange such a strange test? What's the point of this test? I don't feel anything strange about it. Lu Qingmei's words angered Gahan. You think it's meaningless? That's because all the tests have been covered by Guhan. Gahan was the one who discovered the clue. Gahan was the one who lured the golden silk pythons. Gahan was the one who found out the secret of the chicken bash. Guhan was also the one who mastered the skill and retrieved the chicken bash from the 50 golden silk pythons. And Guhan was the one who discovered the secret of the skill. This is because all the difficult things have been done by Guhan. So you Lu Qingmei feel that there is no point in doing it. Of course, it was not to say that Lu Qingmei was useless. At the very least, if Lu Qingmei had not found the phone, Gahan would not have been able to master the skill. But the most depressing part of the story was the last part of the story. It was second only to the death of his parents in Gahan's life. He was raped by a chicken, and the chicken was a F** king rooster. Thinking of this, Guhan couldn't be bothered with Lu Qingmei, the main culprit. He simply strode directly into the chicken house. Lu Qingmei saw that Guhan was unwilling to pay attention to her and seemed to understand something in an instant, and then shouted loudly, "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone about me raping you. This is a secret that we'll keep for the rest of our lives." F***CK, the secret that we'll keep for the rest of our lives. When Guhan heard this, he almost stabbed Lu Qingmei with his sword. If they weren't in the game's dungeon, Guhan wouldn't have hesitated to kill Lu Qingmei. He wanted to kill Lu Qingmei, the person who had traumatized him so much. But then again, although this rooster palace gave Guhan extremely bad memories, it also gave Guhan an extremely important treasure at the same time, and that was heavenly rooster fights. It sounded a little inexplicable. How could a skill specially researched by a chicken be a treasure for a person like Gahan? But in fact, it was precisely because this skill was for a chicken to research. The whole skill did not take into account any factors related to humans. Instead, it opened a whole new door for Gahan. Before this, Guhan's research on the Chaos Sword technique had almost reached the limit. But until now, he had only researched 4 swords of the Chaos Sword technique. According to Gahan's imagination, there should be a total of 7 swords of the Chaos Sword technique. But the previous 4 swords had almost exhausted all of Guhan's accumulation of swordsmanship. Gahan really could not think of where the 5th sword should come from. When he was in the Red Rabbit Palace, he found that he might be able to find a way to break through the Chaos Sword technique in terms of willpower. He could not find any other way. However, the Chicken Kingdom Palace had opened a whole new door for Gahan. When Gahan found himself studying martial arts in a different way, he saw a lot of new things that he could never see in the past. While it greatly enriched Gahan's knowledge of martial arts, Gahan also vaguely found the path of the 6th sword of the Chaos Sword technique. At this moment, Gahan realized that the key to the 5th sword of Chaos Swordsmanship was his willpower, and the key to the 6th sword of Chaos Swordsmanship was the special sword. This was the general principle of the 5th and 6th sword of Chaos Swordsmanship. When Gahan understood these 2 points, he would be able to create the 5th and 6th sword of Chaos Swordsmanship. In the darkness, the greatest pain for a person was not that he could not see a bit of light, but that he did not know where to go. Now, although Gahan could only see a trace of extremely weak light, he already knew where he was and how he should move forward. Based on this point alone, the harvest of the Chicken Temple had far exceeded Gahan's expectations. Even if the entire Heaven's 12 Temples dungeon ended abruptly, Gahan would not feel the slightest loss, because Gahan had already gained a lot. There was nothing to see in the Chicken Temple, so Gahan and Lu Qingmei directly left the Chicken Temple. At this time, there were only 2 palaces in front of Gahan. As long as he passed the last dog and pig tests, Gahan would be able to reach the end of the dungeon and meet the final boss, Kanzu. However, what surprised Gahan and Lu Qingmei was that when they came out of the Stone Monkey Palace, they still did not see any traces of the next palace. At this time, what was even more inexplicable was that Gahan and Lu Qingmei were stunned to find that they seemed to have reached the top of the mountain. If they continued to walk forward, they would reach the highest peak of the skyscraping cliff. There was no road ahead. Military governor, let's quickly look around and see if there are any kennels nearby. Who knows, we might become 2 puppies in this dungeon. Lu Qingmei immediately set out of habit. It seemed that she had not completely walked out of the plot just now. However, no matter how Gahan looked at it, he felt that Lu Qingmei wanted to experience the life of a puppy. Gahan couldn't help but think of what he had seen and heard in 3rd Young Master Shi's house. Although the beautiful dogs and beautiful cats in 3rd Young Master Shi's house were very perverted, they also had a kind of irresistible temptation. Forget it. Now is not the time to think about these things. If he wanted to see it, he could just go watch it. I don't know. Gahan shook his head, but we can ask the old man in front of us. Maybe he can tell us something. Old man? Is there someone in front? Lu Qingmei looked forward in confusion, and suddenly discovered that there was an old man with black hair in front of her. He was sitting on a small patch of grass beside the skyscraping cliff, and was looking at Gahan and Lu Qingmei with a smile on his face. Fleeting time, Jindy. Lu Qingmei's voice trembled as she spoke. Her face was filled with astonishment. It took her a lot of effort to pronounce the name of the old man. That's right, based on his appearance, this old man was none other than the Sword Ancestor's flowing calendar. Whether it was in this era or 900 years later, the appearance of the Sword Ancestor was like the appearance of the great ancestor of the Celestial Empire. Everyone would firmly remember his appearance. The Sword Ancestor had gone deep into the memory of every human being. It was impossible to forget him for a lifetime. Why is Jindy here? Lu Qingmei began to panic. She did not expect to see fleeting time Jindy here. Even though Lu Qingmei's goal was to meet fleeting time Jindy, she had thought that she would have to pass 2 more trials before she could meet the #1 player in the world, Jindy. She did not expect to meet him right after passing the Rooster Palace trial. Military Governor, do you think that this fleeting time Jindy is a fake? At this moment, Lu Qingmei's intelligence was off the charts. She came up with a rather constructive idea. Do you think this Sword Emperor Lun Yin is fake? He is actually the 11th palace's test? That's hard to say. Gohan's expression was grim. He pushed Lu Qingmei's back. We won't get anywhere by standing here. We'll know when we ask him in the morning. Welcome to the top of the skyscraping cliff, my young friends. Congratulations on passing my trial. I've been waiting for you. Kenzu was an old man in his 70s, but his hair was still as black as ever. It was comparable to the hair models in shampoo commercials. Despite the wrinkles on his face, his skin was glowing. He did not look like a man in his 70s, but a middle-aged man in his 30s. Are you really fleeting time, Jindy? Lu Qingmei asked. Do we really pass your trial? Don't we still have 2 more trials to pass? Who said that you still have 2 palace tests to pass? The sword master smiled and said, Why didn't I know? Chapter 991. Isn't that obvious? Lu Qingmei replied softly. We've only reached the 10th palace, the Rooster Palace. There are still 2 more palaces to go. Of course you shouldn't come out now. That's interesting, little girl. Since when did I, fleeting your calendar, say that this place is called the 12 skyscraping palaces? Fleeting year calendar asked with a smile. Of course it's. Lu Qingmei's words trailed off as she remembered that the 12 skyscraping palaces were not official names. They were names given by the sword-bearers themselves. Lu Qingmei could still remember the fleeting year organization's announcement of the 12 skyscraping palaces 9 years ago. It was said that fleeting year Jindy had set up many tests in the skyscraping mountain in hopes that talented sword-bearers will be able to pass the tests and become fleeting year Jindy's inner disciple. In this notice, the words 12 skyscraping palaces had never appeared at all. After that, more and more sword-bearers started challenging the palaces. The name of the 12 heavenly palaces was formed by the consensus of the sword-bearers. Therefore, Sword Emperor Lun Yin had never told anyone else that this place was called the 12 heavenly palaces. But aren't the 12 skyscraping palaces arranged according to the order of the 12 zodiac? Lu Qingmei was still full of doubts as she asked. From the mouse palace at the beginning to the chicken palace just now, shouldn't there be more? Are there 2 palaces for the dog and the pig? Ha ha ha. Fleeting year calendar laughed out loud. This is where the prejudice and ignorance of the world lies. Even though I named the palaces after the 12 zodiac, who has the OCD to make all 12 of them appear? The world thinks that there are 12 palaces in the skyscraping mountain, and they are named after the 12 zodiac. My fleeting year calendar only uses 10 zodiac signs, and I only use the names of the 10 zodiac signs. I don't want to use the last 2 zodiac signs because I want the ignorant people to understand that the world is not what they think it is. In this world, there are no rules other than the laws of nature. There are no 12 skyscraping palaces in this world, only 10 skyscraping palaces. Do the 2 of you understand? Fleeting Calendar had a smug look on his face when he said this. Clearly, he was very happy to be able to fool the world. In this regard, Lu Qingmei could only express her speechlessness. She thought to herself, the big shots really know how to play. In the end, she could only respond helplessly. However, Gahan did not feel any sense of ridicule or helplessness. On the contrary, he understood some things because of these words. Things were indeed as Kenzu had said. No one stipulated that the first 10 zodiac signs of the 12 zodiac signs must be used. No one stipulated that a car must have 4 wheels. In fact, even if it had 5 wheels, it could still run forward happily. This was the sad thing about humans. It was easy for their thinking and intelligence to be limited by rules and regulations, unable to break free. The saddest thing was that these rules and regulations did not appear naturally, but were set by humans themselves. As the saying goes, the evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear. This principle could also be extended to martial arts. After Gahan's swordsmanship reached an extremely profound level, after learning many routines and moves, Even his subsequent swordsmanship would be limited to these routines and moves. He would instinctively and habitually use the moves according to his own experience. While this would ensure the power of his swordsmanship, it would also trap him within the fence. On the contrary, beginners who had not learned any moves and routines would have unlimited possibilities. Therefore, only by abandoning these routines and moves and overthrowing those fences could he further develop and improve. After understanding this principle, Gohan suddenly felt that many unprecedented and wonderful moves had popped up in his mind. Even though most of these moves were useless and unscientific, there were still a lot of bright spots in them. If these bright spots were added to the chaos swordsmanship, the fog that shrouded the chaos swordsmanship would be dispelled. All in all, just one sentence from the Swordmaster had enlightened Gohan, and he had taken another big step forward on the road to the chaos sword method. This man deserved to be the most powerful swordsman in history, who had shocked the world for 1,000 years, and no one could surpass him. The Sword Ancestor Calendar. If that's the case, I'm Master, please accept a bow from your disciple. Lu Qingmei suddenly realized that she was really stupid. Just now, she actually questioned the matter of the last 2 palaces. The test of the first 10 palaces was already abnormal enough. Could it be that she couldn't wait to undergo 2 more tests that she didn't know would be even more abnormal? Wasn't that asking for a snub? If she angered Fleeting Jindy, he might just add 2 more palaces to the test. Wouldn't she be in trouble then? More importantly, according to Fleeting Jindy, she could now kneel down and worship Fleeting Calendar as her master. Thinking of this, Lu Qingmei immediately knelt in front of Fleeting Year Calendar and kowtowed in an attempt to establish their master-disciple relationship. Wait, Fleeting Calendar's body did not move, but Lu Qingmei felt a strong force lifting her up. She could not bring her forehead to the ground no matter how hard she tried. She could not complete the process of kowtowing to Fleeting Calendar. Even though the test is over, I still have a few questions for you. Fleeting Calendar said, if I'm satisfied with your answers, I'll accept you as my disciple. If not, I'll accept you as my disciple in name. Your Majesty, what's the difference between a disciple and a disciple in name? Lu Qingmei asked curiously. A disciple in name is a disciple who will inherit my legacy. He or she will learn from me, and I will impart all of my swordsmanship, abilities, knowledge, and intelligence to him or her. In the future, he or she will become an elder of my family, and he or his descendants will be able to enjoy the blood of my family for thousands of years. As for the disciple in name, he or she will be able to choose 3 things to learn. As long as he or she makes a choice, I will teach him or her the 3 things without reservation. In the future, he or she will become a guest of my family, and he or she will be able to enjoy the blood of my family for thousands of years. Fleeting Calendar explained the benefits of being a disciple in name and a disciple in name, but Lu Qingmei was confused by the explanation. The first part of the explanation was easy to understand. Fleeting Calendar would teach all of his skills to the disciple in name, and then choose 3 skills to teach to the disciple in name. However, the second half of the explanation was difficult to understand. What was the Fleeting Calendar? What was the blood of the family? What was the difference between one person enjoying the blood of the family and one person enjoying the blood of the family? Lu Qingmei was about to ask the question in her heart, but Fleeting Calendar did not give her a chance to speak. She did not expect Fleeting Calendar to wave his hand and say, I know what you want to ask. You'll understand these things in the future, but I can't tell you now. Since Fleeting Calendar had said this, Lu Qingmei could only suppress her doubts. She wanted to find a chance to ask Fleeting Calendar about it in the future. Lu Qingmei was full of doubts, but these words were undoubtedly a bolt from the blue in Gohan's hands. According to the information he received from Wang Jiqiang, as the human sword-bearers of this era were still the first generation of sword-bearers, most of them existed in the form of groups. No one could have guessed that in the future, countless sword-bearers would become one of the most stable organizations of the human race. Countless Emperor Sword-level sword-bearers would pass on their power in the form of families. They did not expect Kinzu to be one step ahead of them. He had predicted the existence of the families in the future and had already begun to make arrangements. The so-called blood of the Jinni families, as well as the Grandmaster and Elder, were special positions that only existed in the Jinni families. On the surface, they were the elders and guests of these families. They usually enjoyed the salary, resources, and privileges of the various worlds, but they had to fight for their families in critical times. They might even sacrifice their lives if necessary. The difference between guests and elders was that for guests, the family only needed to provide for the guest and did not need to be responsible for the guest's family. Moreover, guests could be worshipped by many families at the same time, so there were fewer restrictions on them. For elders, not only would the elder receive the guest, but the elder's family would also receive the guest's guest. Even if the elder died in the future, his direct descendants would have to be worshipped by the clan. Unless the clan's inheritance was completely severed, the clan would have to provide for them until the end. It was very simple for a guest to sever ties with the family. All they had to do was return one, 2 times the amount of resources provided to them by the family, or make contributions to the family. There were no other restrictions. However, the elder's method of repaying resources was not easy to use. He had to make enough contributions and obtain the approval of the family head before he could dissolve the relationship. However, under normal circumstances, the patriarch of the family would agree to the elder's request. After all, if the elder really wanted to sever ties with the family, then forcing him to stay in the family would be a scourge instead. If things went wrong, not only would the elder not work hard, he might even drag the family down. As for blood, it referred to the resources needed to feed the dead and the living. Feeding the dead was called blood. Yan Qingming needed all kinds of items for his winter solstice tomb, sweeping, and his daily worship. Food referred to all kinds of food for the living. This entire system of guests and elders was gradually created after 100 to 200 years of practice. In other words, this system would only appear 100 years after the Jinni families came into existence. But now this system had directly come out of the fleeting calendar's mouth. Could it be that Kinzu had the ability to see the future? How is it? You should answer my question now. The fleeting calendar said solemnly. Chapter 992. My first question is, why do you want me to be your master? Kinzu looked at Gahan and Lu Qingmei's eyes and asked meaningfully. This question suddenly sounded a bit stupid. Why do they want him to be their master? Of course, it was because he was Kinzu. He was the strongest human swordsman, and they could obtain endless benefits from him. This seemed like a question that didn't need to be answered at all. However, since Sword Ancestor had asked this question, then the answer he needed was obviously not the extremely simple answer above. It was an answer that required careful consideration before he could answer. However, Kinzu didn't give Gahan and Lu Qingmei any time to think. He directly pointed at Lu Qingmei's forehead and called for her to answer immediately. Because I want revenge. Lu Qingmei answered very straightforwardly. The person I love the most in my life died at the hands of a Yuan Ko. I must kill him with my own strength to avenge my lover. At this point, Lu Qingmei's expression suddenly became fierce. Clearly, this knot had been buried deep in Lu Qingmei's heart for a long time. So long that it had become a demon in her heart. If she didn't achieve this wish, Lu Qingmei would sooner or later fall into a state of mental breakdown. Sigh. She really can't let go of her hatred. Hearing Lu Qingmei's words, Gahan sighed in his heart because this sentence had already revealed Lu Qingmei's tragic fate in the future. In historical records, after Lu Qingmei became an immortal swordsman, she began to impatiently seek revenge on her enemies. She actually foolishly broke into a large human stronghold of the Martyr's Palace by herself in an attempt to take revenge. The result was very tragic. At that time, there happened to be 2 kings of the Martyr's Palace and the Nightmare King of the Western Demonic Beast Camp holding a meeting there. As a result, Lu Qingmei was captured alive by the 3 Ian rank Yuan Ko. If Lu Qingmei had only been killed by these 3 universe grade Yuan bandits, it wouldn't have been too tragic. After all, countless sword-bearers had died in the hands of Yuan Jun in history. She, Lu Qingmei, alone wasn't much. The most tragic thing was that Lu Qingmei fell into the hands of the Nightmare King, who came to the meeting. The King of Nightmares was the best at manipulating people's minds. It was said that Lu Qingmei was tortured by the King of Nightmares to the point of having a mental breakdown. However, her mind was controlled by the King of Nightmares, and she became the King of Nightmares' puppet. She was then released back to Yanjing City. At that time, Yanjing City didn't have the equipment to detect Yuan Ko's power. Yanjing City didn't realize that Lu Qingmei had been controlled by the Nightmare King. So Lu Qingmei sneaked into Yanjing City. After Lu Qingmei returned home, she went berserk that night. She turned her biological parents into minced meat and then ate the minced meat into her stomach. Then, Lu Qingmei launched a vicious attack on her neighbors. On the spot, thousands of people in 2 buildings died in Lu Qingmei's hands. The other swordsmen wanted to stop Lu Qingmei, but they were no match for Lu Qingmei. They died in Lu Qingmei's hands one after another. When the other immortal sword-bearers arrived, more than 50,000 people had died in Lu Qingmei's hands, including at least 100 swordsman-bearers. After being captured by the immortal sword-bearers, Lu Qingmei suddenly regained her consciousness. When she saw her parents being chopped into minced meat and eaten into her stomach, countless of her neighbors and friends also died tragically under her sword, including more than 20 friends from the swordsman team who were adventuring with her outside. Lu Qingmei's spirit broke down for the second time. This time, it was a complete collapse. Lu Qingmei completely shut off her human personality because of the extreme self-blame. She thought of herself as a rooster, and all her actions were no different from a rooster. Later, the Sword Council started an extremely complicated discussion about Lu Qingmei's case. They discussed whether Lu Qingmei should be sentenced to death. According to Lu Qingmei's mistakes, the consequences were severe. Even if Lu Qingmei was killed 10,000 times, it wouldn't be too much. But the problem was that Lu Qingmei was controlled by the Nightmare King. Her original consciousness was not wrong. On the contrary, she was a person who had suffered great pain and torture. For a moment, the Sword Committee was arguing endlessly over Lu Qingmei's punishment. Some wanted her to be executed immediately, while others wanted her to be released without charge. In the end, the Sword Committee came to a compromise and decided to imprison Lu Qingmei in the Discipline Commission's prison for eternity, never to be released again. Gradually, 20 years passed. When people gradually forgot about Lu Qingmei, Yanjing City was besieged by the Western Magical Beast forces. At that time, 2 G&D ascended in 3 years. It was when the human forces were at their weakest, while the Western Magical Beasts were at their peak. After a fierce battle that lasted for 3 months, the newly constructed second ring of Yanjing City was breached. 5 of the human immortal sword-bearers had also fallen. The moment the second ring was breached, the remaining sword-bearers could only begin to lead the people to hide in the core area to carry out their final resistance. At this moment, no one would pay attention to Lu Qingmei, who had been locked up in the second ring prison for 20 years. As a result, when the violent Yuan bandits entered the abandoned prison of the Discipline Commission of Morals and violently broke open the door of Lu Qingmei's cell and prepared to eat her, this woman, who had been locked up for 20 years, unexpectedly killed all the Yuan bandits who broke into the Discipline Commission of Morals and Discipline Commission without the help of the Sword Lady. After Lu Qingmei came out of the Discipline Commission's prison, she went on a killing spree. In the process of killing, she was lucky enough to find her famous Sword Lady sword, the Butcher Sword. When Lu Qingmei was imprisoned, the Sword Council had forcibly severed the sword mark between the two of them. Later, the Sword Council had coordinated with another sword-bearer and sent the sword away. However, this sword-bearer was unfortunately killed by Yuan Ko in the process of guarding the second ring. The Butcher's sword circled around and finally returned to Lu Qingmei's hand. However, Lu Qingmei could no longer synchronize with it. In the end, Yuan Ko discovered Lu Qingmei, the fish that had escaped the net. he began to gather a large force to surround and kill her. Among the people surrounding and killing her was the King of Nightmares, the Yuan Ko, who caused Lu Qingmei to end up like this. Unfortunately, the remaining documents did not describe how Lu Qingmei fought in the end. They only knew that Lu Qingmei forcibly fought with a group of Yuan Ko. The moment her head was chopped off by Yuan Ko, her butcher sword also shattered the King of Nightmares' demon heart. In the end, the two of them perished together. After the King of Nightmares, Yuan Ko, who had a powerful, bewitching ability, the defense situation in Yinjing began to stabilize. After many difficulties and obstacles, the reinforcements from Lengthened City finally arrived under the leadership of Floating Light Jindy. The forces of both sides worked together to finally repel the Western demonic beasts. Since then, the Western demonic beasts suffered a great loss and lost the title of the #1 force under Yuan Ko. Instead, this title was transferred to the Heavenly Court. According to the memories of the participants at that time, if Lu Qingmei and the King of Nightmares had not perished together, Yinjing would definitely not have been able to hold on until the time when the reinforcements from Lengthened City arrived. That was the only time in Yinjing's history that it had been breached. This was the tragic story of Lu Qingmei that Gahan knew. Not only did this poor woman suffer inhumane torture, but she also killed her parents and friends with her own hands. She was also imprisoned like a rooster for 20 years. Although she finally succeeded in taking revenge and perishing together with her enemy, such a tragic experience could never be reversed. She was also rated as one of the most tragic sword-bearers after the apocalypse. In later generations, Lu Qingmei appeared in many different television series, some in the form of a supporting role. For example, large-scale television series such as Yinjing Destruction, Floating Light Jindy, Cardinal Jindy, and so on, all of them had traces of Lu Qingmei, the Scarlet Sword Fairy. There were also many television series with Lu Qingmei as the main character. Among them, Scarlet Blood was the most famous and created a craze of viewership at that time. In later generations, it had been remade more than 10 times, becoming one of the most remade television series. However, no matter which television series it was, there was only one big boss in it, and that was the King of Nightmares. The King of Nightmares was naturally described as Lu Qingmei's lifelong enemy, the source of all her pain and suffering. However, they neglected an extremely important issue, and that was that the source of all of Lu Qingmei's pain wasn't the King of Nightmares, but the enemy who made Lu Qingmei take a huge risk to enter the Martyr's Palace. This person clearly wasn't the King of Nightmares who had just arrived at the Martyr's Palace for a meeting, but the other Yuan Ko in that stronghold. When Gahan first learned of the Scarlet Sword Fairy's tragic story, he had already discovered this point. Unfortunately, at that time, Gahan had searched through all the information he could find, but he couldn't find any information about the other Yuan Ko. As the Scarlet Sword Fairy had nothing to do with Gahan becoming stronger, Gahan simply tossed the story of the Scarlet Sword Fairy aside and didn't pay too much attention to it. It was only when Kinzu suddenly asked Lu Qingmei this question that Gahan suddenly remembered this matter. "Oh, then who is your true love? Who is your enemy?" Kinzu asked very seriously, but no matter how Gahan listened, he felt that Kinzu's curiosity and desire for gossip were ignited. "Do I have to answer this question?" Lu Qingmei suddenly raised her head and asked hesitantly. It seemed that Lu Qingmei wanted to answer this question. "Of course. If you don't answer my question, then I'll have no choice but to accept you as my in-name disciple." Fleeting Calendar nodded. "My beloved is called Gu Xuanwu, but he has already died in the hands of Yuan Ko. Yuan Ko, who killed him, is the enemy I must kill in my life." At this point, Lu Qingmei took a deep breath and slowly spat out a name that made Guhan's heart race. Artoria Pendragon. Chapter 993. What? That's impossible. What? That's impossible. Guhan and Kinzu both jumped up at the same time and exclaimed at the same time. It was natural for Gahan to exclaim like this, because whether it was his lover, Gu Xuanwu, or the enemy who killed Gu Xuanwu, Artoria Pendragon. They were all related to Gahan. This had a lot to do with Guhan. Moreover, Gu Xuanwu was the daughter of Guhan and Artoria. How could her biological mother kill her own daughter? But when he thought about it again, it didn't seem impossible. According to Gahan's speculation, Gu Xuanwu should have traveled through the Gate of Eternity and Truth about 100 years after the Great Destruction. It seemed very likely that Gu Xuanwu would appear in this era. As for Artoria killing her own daughter, it was also normal because Artoria didn't know that Gu Xuanwu was her daughter at all. Once Gu Xuanwu rushed up to acknowledge her, it was normal for Artoria, who was still under the control of filth, to kill the person who pretended to be her daughter. Of course, compared to these corresponding points, there were even more suspicious points that popped up. According to Gahan's previous information, Guhan's family should have been established by Gu Xuanwu, and Gu Xuanwu was once a swordsman of the heavenly gathering cloud sword. Gu Xuanwu should have grown to become a swordsman of the immortal sword level at the very least, and it was impossible for her to die so easily in the hands of Artoria. And Lu Qingmei said that Gu Xuanwu was her lover. So how could a woman like Gu Xuanwu become another woman's lover? Could it be that Gu Xuanwu and Lu Qingmei had a natural lily attribute? If it was natural for Gahan to jump up when he heard this news, then it was strange for Kenzu to jump up when he heard this news. Could it be that Gu Xuanwu, Artoria, and Kenzu had some kind of connection? Let me ask you, what is your relationship with Gu Xuanwu? Why did she become your lover? How did she die in the hands of Artoria? Guhan suddenly grabbed Lu Qingmei's shoulder and asked in a deep voice. Gu Xuanwu was the person I loved the most in my life. Lu Qingmei's mouth opened and closed, but Guhan couldn't hear any sound. It was as if Lu Qingmei had completely lost her voice. Guhan had seen this phenomenon before in the bullfighting palace. When Gahan asked the other contestants about the sword lady of this era, the swordsman did the same. Although she answered Gahan's question, Gahan didn't hear any reason. Guhan suddenly turned his head and looked at the swordmaster beside him. Obviously, Guhan thought that the swordmaster had blocked Lu Qingmei's words. It wasn't me. Kenzu's face was very solemn. I also want to know what she said. At this time, Lu Qingmei also realized that something was wrong. She also realized that she couldn't hear what the military governor and Kenzu were talking about. She stood up in fear, took out a mobile phone, and opened the message input interface. At this critical moment, Lu Qingmei's intelligence came online again. She immediately thought of a way to communicate through words. However, when Lu Qingmei took out her phone, she suddenly felt the world spin around her. All the strength in her body suddenly began to disappear. She felt like her body was like a willow catkin, constantly being swept up by the breeze and disappearing into the air. At this time, in Guhan's eyes, Lu Qingmei's body gradually began to fade, like water vapor reflected on a glass, gradually fading away as the heat dissipated. "Stop her! Hurry up and stop her! You can't let her disappear," Guhan said to Kenzu in a hurry. "It's useless. I can't control her." Kenzu revealed a helpless smile. The two could only watch as Lu Qingmei's panicked face gradually faded away and finally disappeared into thin air. It was hard to believe that just 10 seconds ago, there was a living Lu Qingmei beside Gahan. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. Kenzu shook his head with a bitter smile. I've always thought that I know everything in the world. I didn't expect to find such a huge secret in this world. Kenzu's words sounded like he was talking to himself, but it also seemed like he was talking to Gahan. How can there be an existence in this world that knows everything? If there is, can this existence know that I'm missing? Guhan raised his head and stared into Kenzu's eyes. The corner of his mouth twitched. May I ask if I should address you as Fleeting Jindi or Lord Kenzu? Enough. We're both smart people. Since we're the only ones left here, there's no need for us to play tricks on each other. Let's be honest, said Kenzu with a smile. I know that you're used to calling me Kenzu, but I prefer to call you Little Brother Fleeting Time, my dear Big Brother Gahan. The sudden address of Fleeting Time and Big Brother Gahan caused Guhan's body to freeze. If not for Kenzu's words, Gahan would have completely forgotten about them. But as these two familiar greetings rang out, Guhan's mind couldn't help but recall everything that happened more than half a year ago. It was also in the game, and it was also in a dungeon. When Gahan had just entered the game, he met a young man whom he called Fleeting Time. The young man liked to call Gahan Big Brother Gahan as well. But everything ended when Guhan stabbed the young man's abdomen with Qingpin's sword. "You're not dead?" Although the deepest secret in his heart was exposed, Guhan's expression was unexpectedly calm. "I died a long time ago," said Kinzu with a smile. "I had died before 911. You don't have to wait until 910 to kill me. Actually, I was just a bystander at that time. I was wandering around the game when I suddenly found an interesting newcomer. Then I quietly followed you guys, but I didn't expect to see such a good show. To be honest, you scared me. I never thought that I could clear the dungeon in such a manner. What I have to admit is that if I was also a pure newbie, I would definitely not be able to do what you did at that time. You are truly too powerful," the Sword Master sincerely praised. "I didn't expect you to be so calm. I thought we'd have to go through a lot of trouble." Gohan rubbed his nose and tightened his grip on the Chidian sword. "What's going on? Why did you deliberately lure me into this instance dungeon? Do you want to kill me to avenge you who died in my hands? I told you, I'm already dead. A dead man will not seek revenge from a living man," said Kinzu as he stood in front of Gohan. He patted Gohan's shoulder. "The reason why I called you here is simple. I just want to teach you something. It just so happens that I feel that this abandoned dungeon is very useful. So I borrowed it. I didn't expect it to cause you a life and death crisis." As soon as Kinzu's voice fell, Tamono Kakaze, who had been floating in the air and could not be seen by ordinary people, suddenly appeared in the air. This was the first time she appeared in this dungeon as a normal person. P.S. Tamono Kakaze kept going offline. The author would never admit that he had forgotten about Tamono Kakaze's existence. Clearly, the life and death crisis that Kinzu mentioned was not meant for Gahan, but for Tamono Kakaze, who was beside Gahan. "Greetings, Your Majesty Kinzu. I never thought that Jinai would be able to meet His Majesty the Sword Ancestor. Jinai is deeply honored. Please accept Jinai's bow." Compared with Guhan, Xiangfeng Jinai was much more respectful to the Sword Ancestor. The moment she appeared, she immediately prostrated herself on the ground and prepared to kowtow to Kinzu. "No need. My recklessness has caused you trouble. Truth be told, I do not know how to deal with this matter. I'm sorry." Kinzu waved his hand, and Tamono Kakaze floated in the air once more. "I never thought that Your Majesty Kinzu would be behind this dungeon," said Tamono Kakaze with a wry smile. "If you have any requests, just tell me. Even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or dive into a sea of flames, I will do it for you. Things would not have gotten so troublesome. I am sorry. I am very sorry." The Sword Master apologized to Tamono Fragrance amiably, and then said to Guhan with a sullen face, "You don't have to act. Pretend to be very shocked. In fact, you have already guessed that I created this instance, and the manipulator behind the scenes is also me, right? Don't pretend to be very shocked. I have said it before. The two of us need to talk openly." "What do you mean?" "Gahan, you already knew that this dungeon was created by His Majesty Kinzu?" Tamono Kakaze looked at Gahan in shock. "I've only vaguely guessed it," said Gahan. "Actually, I already knew that His Majesty Kinzu had a sword soul in this game. However, I was not sure if this sword soul was the mastermind behind this dungeon. That was why I did not tell you. Back in the underground seal of the Radiance Amusement Park, the sword soul mark of Kinzu's fleeting year calendar summoned by Liu Ling had explained it to Gahan. When this game was created, a spiritual sword with his sword soul was used. Therefore, the other sword soul of Kinzu could move freely in the game and keep in contact with other sword souls. Therefore, when Gahan heard that this dungeon was called the 12 Temples of Heaven, he vaguely guessed that the mastermind behind all this might be Kinzu's other sword soul. However, due to some selfish reasons, Gahan did not imagine it to be his guess. It was only at this moment that the truth was revealed. Chapter 994. I wonder why the sword ancestor specially asked me to come here. After the truth was revealed, Gahan began to wonder why Kinzu would use such a method to bring him to this dungeon. After all, if the sword master wanted to see him, he only needed to appear in front of him. There was no need for him to create something as complicated as the instance dungeon of the 12 skyscraping palaces and put Xiangfeng Tamono in such a dangerous situation. Because the setting of this dungeon is very convenient, I took the initiative to activate this abandoned dungeon, Kinzu replied. Convenient setting? Gohan raised his head and looked into Kinzu's eyes. What do you mean, Lord Kinzu? I'm different from Kina-chan. She can create many different facilities in the game according to her will. She can even create a dungeon with a single thought. Kinzu paused for a moment. But I'm different. Although I have a transcendent position in this game and can appear anywhere without being discovered, I can also control many of the rules in this game. However, I'm not the owner of this game. I can't create the things that Kina-chan can create. I can only borrow some ready-made things. I see. Gohan nodded as he finally understood what Kinzu meant. It seemed like the 12 skyscraping temples dungeon had something that Kinzu needed. This dungeon was not just a tool to lure him. I wonder what benefits this 12 skyscraping temples dungeon will bring to you, Kinzu. Gohan asked again. That's wrong. The 12 skyscraping palaces instance dungeon isn't convenient for me. It's convenient for you. The sword master gently waved his hand, and Gohan felt that the time of the entire instance had stopped. The 10 zodiac palaces, which were arranged on a mountain like stairs, instantly left their original positions and floated up like a flying saucer. Finally, the 10 palaces formed a circle and surrounded the top of the skyscraping cliff, just like the heavenly palace of the heavenly court. You've experienced the trials of these 10 palaces. I believe these 10 palaces will be of some help to you, Kinzu asked with a smile. That's right. I've benefited a lot from these 10 palaces. Gohan admitted honestly. The trials along the way had not only improved Gohan in all aspects, but more importantly, Gohan was able to see the way forward with the chaos swordsmanship. He was no longer like a blind man who could not find his own way. These 10 palaces are the conveniences I'm talking about. Kinzu waved his hand again, and the palaces returned to their original positions. These palaces can help you improve yourself. That's the biggest convenience I'm talking about. Gohan had never expected that Kinzu had lured him to this dungeon to help him improve his strength. But that's not right. Why would Kinzu help me? May I ask, in Lord Kinzu's heart, what kind of person do you think I am? What kind of position do I have? Why do I deserve to be cultivated by Lord Kinzu? Gohan asked faintly. It doesn't matter what position you have in my heart. What matters is what position I have in your heart. Kinzu let out a long sigh. If I'm not mistaken, I'm afraid that you hate me to the core and want to tear me into pieces, right? Lord Kinzu, you've already known about it. If an ordinary person were to be guessed by an expert like the sword master, they would definitely panic and deny it again and again. However, Gohan did not do that. Instead, he admitted it calmly. That's right. Ever since you brought my daughter to the gate of truth and eternity in the Radiance Amusement Park, our relationship was destined. Sooner or later, I'll kill my way to the Lunyin family and take revenge. What a joke. I'm already dead. How are you going to take revenge on me? Kinzu did not get angry when he heard Gohan's words. Instead, he chuckled as he asked, could it be that you want to vent your anger on my descendants? As far as I know, although my descendants did something to you, they did not harm you. Instead, they help you a lot. Are you going to bite the hand that feeds you? Sword ancestor, my lord, you're wrong. I can distinguish clearly who is my enemy. I just want to destroy all of your sword souls in this world. Lord Kinzu. I want Lord Kinzu to truly die. Gohan explained his plans in detail. That's not bad. Every debt has a debtor. I was the one who did it that day, so I should take responsibility. It's only natural that you want to destroy all traces of me in this world. Kinzu nodded in agreement. Do it. I'm looking forward to that day. Kinzu's attitude completely confused Gohan. This Kinzu seemed to want Gohan to destroy him. You don't need to feel strange. When you become an existence like me, you'll know that living in this world is a great pain. If it wasn't for the fact that I want to protect this world until the end, I would have killed myself long ago. Kinzu revealed a disappointed expression. I'm very happy that you're here. This means that there's finally someone in this world who can take over my position. I can finally welcome the day when I'm free. Kinzu revealed a sincere smile. What position does Lord Kinzu want me to take over? Is it the position of the so-called leveler? Gohan asked with a frown. Seeing Kinzu like this, Gohan suddenly felt very uncomfortable. It was as if he was about to take over the worst and most painful position in the world. You actually know about the leveler? Kinzu revealed a shocked expression for the first time. Who told you? That's not a term you should know. It's someone from another world called Fleeting Maple. Gohan did not hide anything and told Kinzu everything. This was a very strange feeling for Gohan. Although the person in front of him was one of Gohan's greatest enemies, Gohan could not hide anything from this person. This Kinzu was like a boundless ocean that could contain everything Gohan knew. It made Gohan feel as if telling him his secrets would give him peace of mind. This was not a mental spell or an immortal spell. Instead, it was a kind of charisma that came from Kinzu's body. So you've already met him. He's a step faster than me. Kinzu nodded. That's right. That's what I want you to take over. You'll become the leveler of this world and complete what I couldn't complete in the past. What's a leveler? Gohan raised his head and asked in a serious tone. This was a question that Gohan had long wanted to know the answer to. You're so smart. Can't you guess what it means to be a leveler? Kinzu looked at Gohan meaningfully. To put it simply, a leveler is someone who can pacify this chaotic world. Just like Li Yuan of the Tang Dynasty, Zhu Yuanzhang of the Ming Dynasty, and the founding father of the Celestial Empire, these people are the levelers of this world. However, compared to them, what you need to pacify is not the internal strife of humans, but the enemies of many other worlds. Your burden and task are much heavier than theirs. Is it that simple? Gohan looked at Kinzu suspiciously. How complicated do you want it to be? The Sword Master narrowed his eyes and looked at Gohan. Do you still want to get an exclusive divine weapon, an exclusive pet, and finally a set of exclusive divine arts? Every world will encounter a huge disaster after its birth. Correspondingly, this world will also give birth to a leveler who can pacify this disaster. Kinzu explained leisurely. If the leveler can finally pacify this world's disaster, then this world will finally settle down and become a stable world. If the leveler can't pacify this world's disaster, then the time and space of this world will be broken forever. This world will also become a floating thing in the dimensional space, and the whole world will cease to exist. After listening to Kinzu's words, Gohan was silent. Just like what Kinzu said before, in fact, he had more or less guessed the meaning of a leveler. However, Gohan didn't expect the responsibility of a leveler to be so heavy. At most, Gohan thought that if the leveler failed, the entire human race would perish. However, he never thought that the whole world would be destroyed together. Why me? Gohan was silent for a long time. Does it have to be me? Who decided this? Of course it has to be you. Kinzu nodded. As for who decided this, I don't know. However, I think that if there is really someone who can decide the fate of this world, that guy must be a shameless bastard, a bastard without dignity and bottom line. That's right. That's it. Gohan smiled and nodded. On this point, he had reached a consensus with Kinzu. But if I understand correctly, Master Kinzu, you used to be the leveler of this world. Gohan asked puzzledly. According to what you said after you died, didn't this world already perish? Why did it still exist for 1,000 years? That's because I abandoned another world. Kinzu suddenly said such a strange sentence. Gohan wanted to ask more, but Kinzu waved his hand and said, You've asked me so many questions, I should also ask you a question. Who is the woman who disappeared just now? Why did you try your best to help her come here? Chapter 995. Kinzu's question confused Gohan. Why would Kinzu ask him who Lu Qingmei was? This was clearly an NPC in this dungeon. Gahan felt that he should be the one asking Kenzu who Lu Qingmei was. This woman was not part of my plan. Kenzu seemed to see through Gahan's doubts and took the initiative to explain. I thought that you were the only one who could reach the top. I didn't expect you to bring this woman up. She was not part of my plan, so I asked her those questions first. Isn't the entire dungeon under your control? Why did something like this happen? Gohan asked in confusion. I've said it before. I thought that everything was under my control. But in the end, this world is not under my control. Kenzu smiled bitterly. This dungeon was originally an abandoned dungeon. The NPCs here are all set up by the dungeon itself. I didn't make any changes to these NPCs, so I don't know much about them. Then has Lord Kenzu heard of the Scarlet Sword Immortal? Gohan asked again. I've heard of it, but not when I was alive, but after I died. Kenzu smiled. Like you, I learned of this Scarlet Sword Immortal through the television series of the future. I deeply sympathize with her tragic experience, but I never thought that one day I would have such a story with her. Could it be that the Scarlet Sword Immortal didn't clear the skyscraping 10 palaces? There were as many sword bearers as there was an ocean of them. How could I remember every sword bearer who came to challenge the palace? Kenzu looked at Gohan meaningfully. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid that woman would have been eliminated in the Scarlet Rabbit Palace. How would you have come here? Gohan didn't say anything. Lu Qingmei's ability to reach the top was indeed due to Gohan. There was no doubt about that. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the disappearance of that woman was out of my control. Even though I had taken complete control of this instant's dungeon and was keeping a close watch on everything within it, that woman still managed to break free from my grasp. Under the control of a certain power, she disappeared. At this point, Kenzu hesitated for a moment. Until now, I still haven't figured out whether she disappeared on her own or under the control of some unknown force. You may not know this, but I actually only arranged for one egg to be placed in the chicken coop. But when you arrived there were 2 eggs, and the rule of clearing the level changed from defeating all the gold silk pythons to producing countless offspring, and then witnessing the changes and progress of the entire race, the Swordmaster said with a dignified expression. No wonder I felt like the Chicken Palace's tests were superfluous in many areas. Turns out this isn't a setup by Lord Kenzu. Instead, it was tampered with by some unknown power. Gohan's expression was equally solemn. Even though it was just a small change, what it represented was enough to shake the entire game and even the entire human world. If there's another unknown force that can make that woman disappear in my hands, that means there's a third unknown force in this game. This is an extremely dangerous matter. Countless human consciousnesses are controlled by that unknown force. If there's any change, I'm afraid it'll cause a huge crisis. That's why I'm asking you, who is that woman? Why did you help her like that? Why did I help her? Gahan couldn't answer this question because Gahan didn't know the answer himself. My understanding of you is far beyond your imagination. Ever since you killed me in the dungeon, I've been paying attention to you. I know a thing or two about your personality. A burden like that is a meaningless existence to you. Perhaps you no longer have the black courage to kill me with a single strike, but you definitely haven't become a good person who takes pleasure in helping others. According to my original speculation, you should have treated her with disdain and kept her in the Red Rabbit Palace. However, the truth goes against my speculation. So, I want to ask you, is it because of your sincerity that you're helping her? Or is it because of something else? It's because of my sincerity. Gohan thought for a long time before replying seriously. Helping her is indeed because of my sincerity, but why I want to help her, I don't know. Is that so? Kenzu's hesitant gaze kept scanning Gohan's face. It was obvious that Kenzu didn't believe what Gahan said. He thought that Gahan was hiding something from him. However, in reality, those were Gahan's sincere words. He really didn't know why he wanted to help Lu Qingmei. Lord Kenzu, I think I might know who the mastermind behind this is. At this moment, Tamono Kakazi, who had been silent all this while, suddenly interrupted. Second tone. Kenzu glanced at Tamono Kakazi and smiled. I almost forgot. You're the true ruler of this world. I can't find out where that power came from, but you might be able to. It's not that I found it, but I'm very familiar with this power. I've seen it many times before. Tamono Kakazi smiled bitterly. Gahan, in fact, you should be the most familiar with this power. I didn't think that your old lover would actually leave a foreshadowing in this dungeon. You're talking about I Ching? Gahan's eyes instantly lit up. Yes, Gahan had forgotten about I Ching. The things that happened to Lu Qingmei were indeed very similar to I Ching's usual style. Lord Kanzu, I don't know if you can open this dungeon to me. If I were to systematically comb through the entire dungeon's information, I would be able to find out if this is the foreshadowing left by Jitian Jindi. Tamono Kakazi respectfully requested of Kanzu. This was actually a somewhat ridiculous thing. If this world was compared to a house, then Tamono Kakazi was the owner of the house, and Kanzu was on a certain level of villain who usurped the control of the house. Now, the owner of the house was actually very respectfully requesting this villain to return the control of the house to her. Wasn't this very ridiculous? No problem. Kanzu nodded. Tamono Kakazi immediately felt that she had regained the right to explore the entire dungeon. However, Tamono Kakazi only had the right to explore the dungeon's data. She did not have the right to control the dungeon. The highest authority of this dungeon was still in the hands of Kanzu. That's right. This is indeed the backup plan left by Jitian Jindi. There are some traces left behind by Jitian Jindi. No one else could have done this. Tamono Kakazi quickly confirmed. It seemed that Lu Qingmei was really the foreshadowing left behind by Jitian Jindi in this dungeon. This was very interesting because the 12 Heavenly Palaces dungeon was completely under Kanzu's control. It also appeared because of Kanzu. But now, Jitian Jindi's foreshadowing appeared in a dungeon that was under Kanzu's control. It was as if you and your wife had a child, only to find out that the child had another person's child in her stomach. It was as disgusting as that. Interesting. Interesting. Kanzu was stunned for a moment before he clapped his hands and laughed. This child Jitian is really interesting. She even schemed against me. Good. As expected of the person I once fancied. It's just that her mind is a little too rigid. She only has herself to blame for her ending. This sentence made Gahan's heart skip a beat. What did Kanzu mean by this? Kanzu also fancied I Ching? In other words, I Ching was once a candidate for the leveler? That's right. One of the sword soul marks left behind by Kanzu happened to be used in I Ching's era. I Ching also happened to be in Yinjing City. Maybe the two of them met at that time. But what did Kanzu mean when he said that she only has herself to blame? Could it be that I Ching's ending was not the normal white heaven ascension as recorded in history? Don't ask me about that person. I don't have the face to mention her. Kanzu directly blocked Gohan's question. Then the whole scene suddenly fell into a strange silence. Kanzu was silent because he was thinking about Lu Qingmei and I Ching. Gahan was silent because he once again thought of Lu Qingmei's last two answers to Kanzu. Her lover was Gu Xuanwu, and the one who killed Gu Xuanwu was Artoria Pendragon, Gu Xuanwu's biological mother. This matter itself was already puzzling to Gahan. What was even more unimaginable was that I Ching actually had a hand in it. There was no doubt that Lu Qingmei was deliberately sent to Gahan by I Ching. Then why did I Ching send Lu Qingmei to Gahan? Gahan thought that the reason why I Ching sent Lu Qingmei to him was to let him know from her that Artoria Pendragon killed Gu Xuanwu. The evidence was that she disappeared directly after answering the two questions of Kanzu. Obviously, Lu Qingmei had lost her usefulness at this time. If she continued to speak, she would say something that I Ching did not want Gahan to know. So I Ching directly set Lu Qingmei to disappear at this time. Then a new question arose. Why did I Ching deliberately tell Gahan in this way? What exactly was I Ching plotting? More importantly, at this moment, Gahan suddenly had a strong dissatisfaction with I Ching. Gahan faintly felt that I Ching seemed to be trying to manipulate him. What was more frightening was that Gahan vaguely felt that his life, to this point, seemed to be under the control of someone. Could this person be I Ching? Don't think so much. You just need to understand that strength is the most fundamental thing. That's enough. The sword master suddenly patted Gahan's shoulder, who was in deep thought, and then said, "I have told you enough about what happened today. Next is the real reason why I asked you to come here. To be honest, you are still thousands of miles away from the strength that a real leveler should have. But you don't have much time left, so I have to help you out this time. That you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.